Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the December 1st regular meeting of the Nanaimo City Council. I'd like to first recognize that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the Snuneymuxw First Nation. Our clerk tonight will be Ms. Sheila Gurry. Tonight's regular meeting of council is being held in accordance with the Community Charter and Council Procedure Bylaw 2018, number 7272. If during the meeting any member of the gallery has a question regarding an agenda item, please write down your name and the agenda item on the question period sign-up sheet, which is on the table by the double doors to my left. Please note that the Council Procedure Bylaw states that questions will only be taken on staff reports, consent items, or other business items. I would like to, before we start the meeting, take a few moments to remind those who are attending in person about the rules of decorum for all council and committee meetings. A meeting of council is intended to be a place where democracy can freely take place in a respectful and safe manner. Council chambers is a workplace, and there are considerations council and staff must make to ensure that a safe work environment exists in accordance with WorkSafe BC regulations. To support this, and in accordance with the Council's procedure bylaw, disrespectful conduct will not be tolerated. So we ask that there be no cheering or jeering or other disruptions from the gallery. Furthermore, the use of electronic devices for recording or photographing is prohibited unless otherwise authorized through the media accreditation policy or by the chair. This will ensure that anyone speaking, whether it be a delegation, member of council, staff, is not interrupted and can make their point freely without distraction, fear of ridicule, or intimidation. That said, there may be moments during certain presentations or recognitions where clapping or expressions of appreciation are welcomed. I will indicate when those moments are appropriate, if any. In instances where a speaker is being cut off, is being inappropriate or has exceeded their time limit, their microphone will be cut off. Similarly, if there are disruptions by any person in the gallery, they will be asked to stop. And if they do not comply, they may be asked to leave as permitted under Section 133 of the Community Charter. If necessary, council may call a recess in order to reset the environment of the council chambers. It is our belief that if everyone is respectful of these basic considerations, this meeting and future meetings will be more effective in furthering the business of the City of Nanaimo. The first item on the agenda is the introduction of late items, Ms. Gurry, and we have a couple, please.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, and good evening, Council. For late items this evening, agenda item 13B, development permit application number DP 1359 for 1435 Cranberry Avenue. We're adding a delegation from Joan Brown, Snuneymuxw First Nation, Selena Hang, project planner, Macola Development, and Maris McDonald, architect from McDonald Haggerty Architects Ltd. Apologies for getting the names wrong there. And we're also adding agenda item 16B, which is Councillor Armstrong notice of motion regarding dry supportive housing. And that's it, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Motion for adoption of the agenda is amended. Moved Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Manley. All those in favour? Any opposed? None. Motion for adoption of the minutes is circulated. Moved Councillor Hemmons, seconded Councillor Perino. All those in favour? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. I have a very short mayor's report tonight. And this is with respect to a news release issued by the city and community partners as we prepare for winter weather response. As temperatures begin to drop, the City of Nanaimo is working in close partnership with a network of dedicated community organizations to prepare for the upcoming winter season. Together, these partners are coordinating a comprehensive response to ensure vulnerable residents have access to essential services during periods of extreme cold weather. This collaborative effort includes expanding existing shelter capacity, establishing warming centres, and organizing outreach teams to provide wellness checks and distribute survival supplies. In addition to these efforts, the City of Nanaimo is working to increase overnight warming centre services. These services are activated when weather thresholds are met as determined by the Ministry of Emergency Management and Climate Readiness, or BC Housing's Extreme Weather Response Program. The City is also funding the daytime services at the Hub through March 31st, 2026. This hub provides critical daytime supports and will offer access to warming centre services for people in need during extreme weather events. Key winter services include temporary overnight shelters and warming spaces across the city, daytime services at the Hub, as indicated, until March 31st, 2026, offering warming centre access. Transportation, that is the Regional District of Nanaimo Transit Services support, will be provided for individuals accessing warming centre services, outreach and wellness checks by trained teams. Residents are encouraged to visit the City of Nanaimo's emergency support and services and for the most up-to-date information on available services throughout the winter season. And just on a related note, I would remind everyone, I wish that the giving went on all year, but there is a tradition of exceptional giving in the community at this time of year as we face inclement weather and the Christmas season is upon us. And so I hope that all of you who have enjoyed a more prosperous year than many of our most vulnerable will consider digging into your pockets. There are numerous organizations that reach out every day in a multitude of ways to help those amongst us who have not been so fortunate, to whom life has not been kind. And I would encourage each and every one of you to do that. Rise and report, Ms. Gurry. Happy to report the appointment on November 17th at an in-camera council meeting of Nicolina Vercar, Deputy Corporate Officer, as the Deputy Chief Election Officer for the 2026 local election. Sheila Gurry, Director of Legislative Services, has been appointed as Chief Election Officer under the authority of the City of Nanaimo Officer Designation and Delegation of Authority Bylaw 2022, number 7353. The more cynical amongst all will say that the silly season has begun as we do the countdown to October. Now on to one of the main items on the agenda tonight, which is presentations, and that's the E-Town Hall to discuss the 2026-2030 draft financial plan. It will begin shortly, and Nanaimo residents wishing to ask questions about the city's 2026-2030 draft financial plan will have the opportunity to do so. That will soon be explained by Mr. Burgos, the city's Manager of Corporate Communications and Community Relations. Everyone can follow the financial plan approval process. Additional budget presentations will occur during special Finance and Audit Committee meetings December 3rd and 5th. Budget materials and recordings from these meetings can be found at www.nanaimo.ca/meetings. And the first item is a budget video. Ms. Mercer, you're going to introduce that, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So before we get started with the E-Town Hall questions, we're going to play a short video that highlights some of the items that are included in the 2026 to 2030 draft financial plan. And after that, I will provide a condensed version of the budget presentation, or the draft budget presentation that was that we were presented on November 5th or 21st at the Special Finance and Audit Committee meeting. So anybody wanting to actually view the full presentation can see that on the city's website.
Each year, the City of Nanaimo builds out a budget that keeps our community thriving. It's a careful balancing act, funding day-to-day operations, allocating for parks and road maintenance, supporting programs, and planning for future infrastructure improvements. Without a proper budget, roads would deteriorate, pipes would leak, our drinking water could be at risk, and parks like Westwood Lake here wouldn't be such amazing destinations. Safety, quality of life, and the Nanaimo depend on the city's budgeting process. Smart planning today builds a stronger Nanaimo for tomorrow. And we're here with Phil Stewart, the City of Nanaimo's Manager of Engineering Projects. We're standing on the corner of East Wellington Road and Madsen Road talking about infrastructure improvements. Phil, tell me all about it.
Yeah, so this project is a signal upgrade at East Wellington and Madsen, and kind of one of the things that we do is we try to combine projects into one project. So in addition to the signal, which was the start of the project, we've added active transportation trail connections between the water supply trail down to some of the other active transportation links that we had over the last couple of years, and then also the signal at East Wellington and Bowen Road is up for renewal. So instead of doing them all as separate projects, we combine them into one project, a lot more efficient, and it's also cuts down on the time of the contractors here working and interrupting everybody's queue.
So what does the green crosswalk mean?
This is conflict paint, and it helps drivers be aware that there could be pedestrians or cyclists crossing in front of them.
And we're here with Jamie Roser, Manager of Transportation for the City of Nanaimo. I'd like to know a little bit more about active transportation. What does the city do for that?
So City of Nanaimo is using active transportation as sort of growth strategy for its transportation system. And so what we're doing with that is finding ways to make it safer, more comfortable, and more appealing for people to walk, bike, or take transit. And so whether we're building more sidewalks, bike lanes, or trying to find ways to improve our transit facilities, these are all parts that get incorporated into our capital projects to support the community moving to and from their daily needs.
We're here with the City of Nanaimo Mayor Leonard Krogh. Mr. Mayor, nice to see you as always. Let's talk a little bit about infrastructure. Growing cities, it's necessary, isn't it?
Look, amenities are what attract people to communities. If you have a really first-rate park system, if you have an artificial turf field that people can play on year-round, like at Harewood where we are today, if you have running trails, if you have biking paths, if you have skating rinks and arenas and pools, all of those things enhance the attractiveness of this city, provide the kind of amenities people want, and they'll allow us to attract the kind of professionals and people we need to keep our economy growing and our community prospering.
I love that sign. Tell me a little bit more about it.
The Civic Arena sign was part of the Civic Arena, which we carried forward to the Ice Center for when we opened it just after we closed the Civic. The benches as well are nostalgia and a big part of our Nanaimo history.
Nice. We're here with Darcy Osborne, our Director of Parks, Recreation and Culture for the City of Nanaimo. So Darcy, programming obviously would support facilities infrastructure, correct?
Absolutely, yes. As a matter of fact, our facilities are extremely busy in the City of Nanaimo. We saw 1.1 million visitors alone to the Nanaimo Aquatic Center. We had about $2.8 million in program revenue in 2024 and saw over 10,000 registrations. And what's unique about that is that with our program registrations, we actually have a 20% facility development fund. And we take 20% off the top of all of our program registrations and put that into a reserve that will help with facility infrastructure renewal and upkeep and potentially new facilities.
And it must cost to upkeep these buildings.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of upkeep that is required to keep facilities operating, a lot of mechanical and infrastructure that we have to maintain. For example, you're going to see this coming year that we'll be redoing the roof at the Frank Crane Arena and Social Center in Bevan Park Plaza. And we probably want to note that Frank Crane Arena is turning 50 years on January 3rd.
Wow, well, happy birthday, right?
Yeah.
We're here with Carrie Ng, the Director of Information Technology and GIS with the City of Nanaimo. Carrie, let's talk about the importance of capital projects and what that means for the City of Nanaimo. What are we working on right now?
Our focus in IT is to increase the digital experience, right? To make sure that people can get access to their data as expected so they can do their tasks, whether it's the public and our staff. So our focus has been a couple of things. Some major projects include the replacement of our ERP, or Enterprise Resource Planning. That's the key system that the organization has. It's responsible for all financial processing, all payroll processing, as well as HR activities, as well as we're upgrading our network infrastructure. So no different than the water mains below the streets, as it makes the flow of water, is that this network infrastructure maintains and controls the flow of data. As we know, with more increased demand on digital services, that we need to make sure that the data flow that we have is both stable and scalable. And then in addition to that, we're always investing in cybersecurity. Right, we need to make sure that all our services, all the data that we have is secure, and that we've made investments in terms of finding a partner that provides 24/7, 365 threat monitoring, detection, and response. So we have a bit of a guardian angel, which is incredibly helpful and valuable.
So we can sleep better at night.
We can, but we definitely can't rest on our laurels because the pace of technology is incredibly quick. So we need to come up to speed with technology such as AI and how AI is applied to cybersecurity so that we can roll it out to the organization to find productivity gains, but we can roll it out deliberately and with caution to make sure that we're not exposing the organization to any other risk.
We're sitting in one of the City of Nanaimo's garbage trucks with David Thompson. David, tell me a little bit about service levels.
Well, we're out every day collecting garbage, recyclables, and organics from over 32,000 residents across the City of Nanaimo. Cost us about $2 million a year in tipping fees to do that work.
And with these trucks being on the road 5 days a week, I'm assuming they age, and are some new trucks coming to the city?
We're sitting in one of our oldest trucks, and yes, we've got 3 new trucks arriving in 2026. 2 that we're purchasing and 1 that we're leasing. We're going to try out a different ownership model and see if we can reduce our ownership and maintenance costs.
We're here with Laura Mercer, the General Manager for Corporate Services for the City of Nanaimo, and we're talking about budget. This is a big part of your department, and so let's talk about the budgetary process for the city.
So there's 3 main components that go into creating the 5-year financial plan. And the first is operating budgets. So every year, staff build their budgets from scratch. So the city uses what's called a modified zero-based budgeting approach. And this is where we take wages and benefits that are outlined in the collective agreement, along with internal fleet and computer charges. And then every other line in the budget, so utilities, contracted services, etc., start at 0, and they're built up based on need. And the second component is project plans. So the majority of projects are a result of the 20-year investment plan. And these are informed by our asset management plans. And these identify projects that need upgrading or replacement. And then items such as the DCC bylaws or strategic plans like the city plan identify projects that need to be included as well. And then of course every year we have unexpected projects that pop up for inclusion. So these are all combined into a 10-year project plan, and then the first 5 years of that plan are included into the financial plan.
Okay, and so you've mentioned the first 2 components, and for the third one, my understanding is it's about business cases. So let's talk a little bit about that.
So business cases are developed when a request for a new service or a new resource, which is staffing, or things like that, are being requested. And so the business cases identify the need and the cost associated with it, and then council reviews those for inclusion, if any, into the financial plan. And so those 3 components combined create the 5-year financial plan.
Now, in terms of business cases, there's some things that some people may not know about in terms of budget, and some of that is about, again, staffing. So let's talk a little bit about that.
So, for example, we have 4 new RCMP officers included in the 2026 budget. Now, this came from an inclusion in 2025 that added 4 officers per year for 3 years.
We're here with Shannon Moore, the City of Nanaimo's Senior Community Safety Officer, and we're in one of the CSO trucks right now. So Shannon, let's talk a little bit about CSOs. How many do we have as a city?
Currently, we are a team of 17, and that includes 2 supervisors. Okay. So we currently have 1 vacancy that we're actively working to fill for this year. Okay. Under this current budget. We work 7 days a week. We start 7 a.m. and we work till 11. Starting in January, though, our hours are going to push out a little further. We are going to start at 6:30 in the morning and go through till 1 a.m.
Oh, wow. Okay, so extended hours. Now, is there a plan to add more CSOs in the future?
Yes. So we actually have funding currently for 1 additional for the 2025 year. And next year, we've been budgeted to hire an additional 4. So that would expand our full team to 20 with an additional 2 senior supervisors, myself and Barry Hornby.
You've definitely made a positive impact. I think there's been a change, and having CSOs as boots on the ground supporting the downtown area in the city of Nanaimo has been really important. And this is not something that was on the budget just a few years ago, correct?
Correct. This is a new program to the city. Originally, both parking and general duty bylaw were responding to the social disorder of the downtown, and that was pulling away from their duties that they were hired to do. Together with the downtown businesses, they came up with a community action plan to address the issue, and that was where the CSO program came out of.
Now, if someone is interested in learning more about the budget or wanting to get in contact with someone with the city if they have some questions, what can they do?
All of our budget information is on the website, but every year we have a number of budget sessions that people can attend, the public can attend. And as well, we do an e-town hall meeting at a council meeting, and you can ask questions in person or submit them online.
So it sounds like there's ways that people can follow along. That's fantastic.
The City of Nanaimo budget is about so much more than numbers. We're investing in infrastructure that keeps us connected, recreation opportunities that bring people together, services that you can count on, and the reshaping and beautification of our public spaces. Nanaimo is a city ready for today and a thriving tomorrow. Learn more about the city budget at www.nanaimo.ca/go-to/budget.
Ms. Mercer, we're in your hands, the 2026-2030 draft financial plan overview.
Thank you.
Please.
I'll just let them load the slide deck. Maybe. So when we came to council for direction in June of this year, the property tax increase for 2026 in the current 2025 to 2030 financial, 2029 financial plan was 7.7%. So since that time, staff have worked to reduce that percentage while keeping current levels of service. In the draft financial plan, the property tax increase is 7.1%, which includes 1% for asset management to support the long-term sustainability of our infrastructure. With Council's decision to discontinue funding to the Systems Planning Organization after 2025, this further drops the property tax increase to 6.9%. Prior to final adoption in the spring, benefit rates will be updated. Estimates for items such as investment income, contract negotiations, and casino revenue will be reviewed and refined if required. As well, the growth estimate will be updated in the spring when final assessment information is received. Projected user fee increases for 2026 are 4% for sewer, 5% for water, and the annual rate for residential garbage collection will increase to $253. Sewer and water both include a 2% increase in the contributions to their asset management reserve funds. This slide provides a recap of our recent property tax increases along with the 7.1% draft increase for 2026. So when reviewing this information, it's important to consider the significant service enhancements Council has approved over the last few years, many of which directly impact operating costs and staffing levels. The Fire Master Plan implementation included 20 new career firefighters in August of 2023 and 20 in January of 2025. Community safety officers were added, and 12 were onboarded in 2022, 6 more were added in 2025, and an additional 4 are scheduled to join next year. 2 community clean teams were established as a permanent resource in 2022 to support cleanliness in public spaces. As well, the RCMP members increases included 7 in 2022, 3 in 2023, 3 in 2024, 4 in 2025, and 4 more are planned in 2026, totaling 20 new RCMP members over a 5-year period. In addition to these public safety and community service investments, Council has also added resources to maintain service levels as the city continues to grow. We are also managing the financial impacts of post-COVID price increases and new tariffs, which have added pressure to our operating budgets. These decisions reflect Council's ongoing commitment to community safety, livability, and service delivery, and they help provide context for the property tax increases you see on this slide. Looking at our neighbors and 3 cities below and 2 cities above us in population, you can see how Nanaimo compares when looking at taxes on a typical house. We can see that 3 municipalities, 2 of which have significantly lower populations than us, were below us, and 4 were above us in 2025. It's important to remember when looking at other municipalities, not all provide the same services or fund them in the same way. As well, the value of a typical home can vary substantially between communities. So what does a 7.1% increase mean for the typical home? For the average home that changes in value with the same rate as Class 1 properties, the estimated increase in property taxes for 2026 is approximately $218. This figure does exclude amounts collected by the city on behalf of other governments, so that's the Regional District of Nanaimo, the hospital, and school tax levies. When user fees are included, the total change is approximately $262. Of the $3,299 in annual property taxes, 2,721 directly funds essential city services that residents rely on every day. This includes maintaining parks and sports fields, recreation and culture facilities, community safety services such as police, fire, and community safety officers, as well as the upkeep of roads and storm sewer infrastructure. $362 will go to reserves, and this includes contributions to the General Asset Management Reserve, equipment depreciation, IT, photocopier, climate action, Q Field, and the Harewood Artificial Turf Field Reserves. $168 will go to fund projects, and $40 will go to service debt, and that includes the Vancouver Island Conference Centre and the Fire Station number 4. For the $2,721 for city services broken down by area includes $714 for the RCMP, $470 for Nanaimo Fire Rescue Operations, which includes 911 services and emergency management. $458 supports Parks, Recreation, and Culture. $344 supports corporate services, which includes finance, information technology, and corporate and business development, under which the Vancouver Island Conference Centre, Tourism Nanaimo, and the Nanaimo Prosperity Corporation fall. Corporate services also covers general government budgets, such as the committed contingency funds for new QP and IAFF agreements, grants to organizations like the Nanaimo Area Land Trust and CATNIP, and corporate insurance. $283 funds engineering and public works, and this does not include sewer, water, and most sanitation costs, as those are funded by user fees. Police services at $137 is the municipal employees who support the RCMP operations and the operations of the police facilities. Public safety is by law, including animal control, our community safety officers, and social planning. And the city admin section is the CAO's office, legislative services, and HR. When broken down, this equates to approximately $7.45 per day for the services that keep our community safe, connected, and vibrant. These investments ensure reliable emergency response, well-maintained public spaces, and infrastructure that supports quality of life for all residents. So 2026 revenues. The total revenues for the city is budgeted at $289.2 million, which provides funding for operations, projects, reserves, as well as the Vancouver Island Regional Library. Revenue excludes any new borrowing and transfers from reserve, as those are classified as funding sources and not revenue. As you can see, the property taxes at 62.7% make up the largest share of the city's revenue. Our annual operating and maintenance costs total $227.2 million. This figure excludes projects, both operating and capital, as well as the Vancouver Island Regional Library. This chart identifies where our resources are focused in this year's budget. So looking at community services, we have broken that into 3 categories: parks, recreation, and culture; community safety, which includes Nanaimo Fire Rescue, public safety, and police services, and accounts for $48.6 million. As well, the RCMP, which represents $40.6 million. Together, these last 2 areas within community services make up just over 39% of the city's overall operating budget, which highlights the significant investment in public safety. Moving on to the Port of Nanaimo Centre, this has been separated from corporate services and includes operating costs for the Vancouver Island Conference Centre and the common areas the city is responsible for of the Port of Nanaimo Centre. It also covers $100,000 for capital replacement and debt servicing. We've also shown water and sewer separately from engineering and public works for clarity. And finally, corporate services include several important items not previously mentioned. So that's the post-employment benefits, which are funded from reserves, the hotel tax payover, which is funded from MRDT revenues, and the business improvement area payovers. So looking at what makes up the 7.1% property tax increase, the 6-figure budget drivers for 2026 are listed on the next 2 slides. So I'm not going to go through all of them tonight, but I will highlight some of the larger increases. And these include $1.6 million increase for contributions to the General Asset Management Reserve, and this was one of the approved recommendations from the 20-year investment plan. $1.2 million increase in project funding. So base funding for projects increases 5% a year per the 20-year investment plan to address growth in assets and inflation. Plus, we have the impact of a one-time funding reduction in 2025. So in 2025, there was a one-time reduction in base funding of $795,456 as a result of moving phase 2 of the Commercial Street implementation outside of the 5-year financial plan. 2026 funding is based on a 5% increase to 2025 base funding prior to that one-time reduction. $3.9 million increase is for the RCMP contract, and this includes 4 new members coming on board in April, as well as a full year for the 4 members added in 2025. For 2026, we have budgeted the contract at 92%, which is similar to 2025, and for years 2027 onward, we have budgeted the contract at 95%. And finally, on the expenditure side, we have a $5.5 million increase for wages and benefits. And this includes a negative contingency of $750,000 to account for vacancies throughout the year in the general fund. Contingency for contract increases is included as the IAFF contract expired December 31st, 2024, and the QP contract will expire December 31st, 2025. It includes 4 new CSO positions and 2 new positions in police services. It reflects the progression along the pay scale of the 40 new firefighters, and again, 20 of those were added in August of 2023 and 20 in January 2025. As well, it includes a full year for the 10.5 positions that were added in 2025. The 6-figure revenue changes include a $121,000 decrease for aquatics revenues, and this reduction is primarily due to an extended 9-week shutdown at NAC next year to accommodate the dehumidification improvement project and the installation of a new play feature. A $100,000 increase in investment income, and the city's mix of short and long-term investments has helped mitigate the impact of declining interest rates, resulting in investment income actually increasing rather than decreasing as previously anticipated. We have a $100,000 decrease in reserve funding, and this reflects 2025 being the final year of the strategy to use reserves to reduce property taxes as the city recovered from the COVID-19 pandemic. The other charges line are drivers with less than 6 figures and total a decrease of $290,000. And finally, the projected impact of growth less supplements is $1.1 million. And we are using a conservative number of $1.2 million for growth, and this will be updated for final based on actual growth. So the net change of all of these is an increase of $11.5 million or 7.1% tax increase. This slide provides a budget driver breakdown by percentage. And next we'll go on to debt. So at December 31st, the city had outstanding external debt of $33.9 million, and this includes Fire Station Number 4 and the Vancouver Island Conference Center, which are funded by property taxes. Fire Station Number 1 is funded by General Asset Management Reserve. Sanitation debt for the refuse trucks, which is funded by user fees, and the water treatment plant debt is funded by water user fees. We also had 2 internal borrowings related to sewer DCC projects, for which the debt servicing is currently being funded by sewer operations, as there is insufficient funding in the sewer DCC reserve to repay the debt and undertake needed sewer DCC projects. The budget includes 1 new external borrowing to support the renewal of a roof, replacement of windows, and upgrades to the HVAC system at the Vancouver Island Conference Center. The total projected borrowing for this initiative is $15.7 million over 4 years, with $11.2 million falling within the current 5-year financial plan. And of course, this borrowing will be subject to approval. This slide shows the projected outstanding debt over the next 5 years. So how much the city can borrow is governed by our liability servicing limit, which is 25% of our controllable and sustainable revenues for the year. So we just received approval from the province on our 2024 financial statements. So when you take 25% of those 25% 2024 sustainable and controllable revenues of $246.8 million. The city's liability servicing limit is $61.7 million for annual principal and interest payments. Currently, the city's debt servicing totals approximately $7.5 million, or 12.2% of that $61.7 million maximum limit. This chart shows shows the debt servicing limits for our neighbors and similar sized municipalities. Unfortunately, the province has not updated their website recently to provide 2024 comparables. So next we'll talk briefly about the draft project plan. So the draft project plan has $374 million in projects over the next 5 years. And this includes $72.9 million, or 19%, in water projects, $71.5 million, or 19%, in facility projects, and $55.7 million, or 15%, in transportation projects. Approximately 68% of projects address renewal of our existing infrastructure to maintain service levels. This includes a wide range of projects, and that's everything from water, sewer, and storm mains to the renewal of fire apparatus, trails, and playgrounds. 16% is related to DCC projects, including those projects proposed to be included in the new DCC bylaw to address growth. A portion of these projects are funded by developer contributions based on the city's development cost charge bylaw. And 10% is new or upgraded infrastructure, and this includes improvements at some of our sports field, active transportation amenities, and utility infrastructure. Almost 80% of our project funding comes from reserves, and this table and chart provides a breakdown of the funding, and it also shows where dollars flow from for different funding sources. Now, it is very small, so I would recommend going on the website if you want to see this in great detail. So the General Asset Management Reserve at $91.4 million is the largest single source of funding, and this reserve is funded by property taxes, and projected contributions to this reserve between 2026 and 2030 are $91.3 million, and between project funding and debt servicing, $96.8 million is budgeted to be spent. General revenue project funding is budgeted at $51.2 million, which represents a 5% increase over base project funding each year, and is in line with the 20-year investment plan presented in 2023 and represents 13.7% of project funding. A number of reserves are funded by user fees or a combination of user fees and revenue, such as the Facility Development Reserve, General Parking Reserve, Sewer and Water Asset Management Reserves, and the Sewer and Water Operating Reserves. Property taxes also fund a portion of the Climate Action Reserve Fund and the Equipment Depreciation Fund. As well, those reserves that show as funded from internal charges also include a property tax component. Some key engineering and public works projects in 2026 include the Bowen Road Upgrade Project that will see the repaving of Bowen Road between Labio and Rosstown Roads, as well as the renewal of the Bowen-Labio intersection and added cycle lanes. The East Wellington and Madsen Traffic Signal Project will see work in 2026 on the upgrading of East Wellington Road between Bowen and Madsen. Work includes a new signal at Madsen and East Wellington, renewal of the signal at Bowen and East Wellington, and connecting the Parkway Trail to Caspers Way. The Hammond Bay project, or the Hammond Bay Road Force Main RDN project, is a multi-year project that sees the city and the RDN cost share on utility and road upgrades to Hammond Bay. And the last project listed on this slide is the Country Club Urban Center Mobility Upgrades project. And again, this is a multi-year project that will see end-of-life infrastructure on Norwell Drive renewed, and this includes pavement, signals, and utilities. Some key parks, recreation, and culture projects in 2026 include the NAC Play Structure Phase 1 and the dehumidification improvement project. So Phase 1 of the play structure involves replacing the boat previously located in the leisure pool with a new interactive and accessible feature. The dehumidification improvements will see the replacement of that system and 2 key air handlers, as well as a heat recovery and preheating will be added using heat pump technology. The Westwood Lake Phase 3 project is a multi-year project that will see design and construction of park improvements in the areas between First and Second Beach. Amenities include additional accessible access to water for swimming and kayaking, seating and viewing areas, and improved access to Second Beach from First Beach. The third project listed here is the Beban Complex Roof Project, and it is another multi-year project that will replace sections of the Beban Complex roof. And the Maffeo Sutton Park Washroom Project is also a multi-year project that will see the design and construction of a new washroom facility. As well, the design includes a green room, space for cultural and event uses. And the last section I'll touch on is reserves. If I can get to my notes. The city has a reserve policy that governs the development, maintenance, and use of reserves, including the requirement of minimum reserve balances where appropriate. So the financial planning processes strive to maintain the recommended target minimum reserve balances for the 5 years of the financial plan. The city has both operating and statutory reserves, and statutory reserves are authorized by the community charter and/or city bylaws and can only be used as authorized. So for example, DCC reserves are statutory reserves and can only be used for projects identified in the DCC bylaw. So the current projected closing balance is made up of approximately 35% DCC reserves over the whole total. So the projected 2026 closing reserve balance is $159.4 million. 14% of those are sewer reserves, 22% are water reserves, and 64% are general reserves. And that is the end of my presentation, and we can get on with questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mercer. Much appreciated. Mr. Burgos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, Your Worship, Council, those in the audience and watching online. Welcome to the City of Nanaimo's E-Town Hall on the 2026-2030 Draft Financial Plan. I will be moderating tonight's discussion where we'll explore how the city plans to invest in our community's future. This E-Town Hall is an opportunity for the public to engage directly with city staff and council, ask questions, and provide feedback on the proposed financial plan. We're excited to offer a variety of ways to participate, whether you're here in person, watching online, or tuning in through Rogers TV. Questions can be submitted through the city's website or on social media using the hashtag NanaimoTH on Instagram, Blue Sky, or X, facebook.com/City of Nanaimo, online at nanaimo.ca/eTownHall, or you can scan the QR code that you see on the screen. In addition to what we have heard from Ms. Mercer, tonight's discussion is part of a larger budget process, and the public's input will help shape the decisions ahead. Thank you for being here and for your engagement in building a thriving future for Nanaimo. Here are some housekeeping items. 1 hour is allotted for the E-Town Hall. Council has the discretion to extend it an extra 30 minutes. The subject for this E-Town Hall is the 2026 budget. Please keep your questions limited to this subject. If you have questions regarding other subjects that are covered on tonight's agenda, you may sign up for a question period. All questions that are sent in virtually are moderated for length, clarity, and to make sure that they are about the budget. To ensure all trending topics are covered and as many questions are asked as possible, questions that are similar in nature will be compiled into 1 or 2 questions. Now, for those in the audience today, if you're asking a question in person, questions from the gallery will be on a first-come, first-served basis. Please get my attention and I will add you to the speakers list. To give everyone a chance in the gallery to ask a question, we will only be fielding 1 question per person at the mic behind me right here. I will call you up when it's your turn. You will have 1 minute to ask your question. If you have more than 1 question, please give others in the gallery the opportunity to ask a question before you ask another. So again, please get my attention and I will add you to the list. And let's keep the conversation clean and civil. Let's begin. First question, this is a general question. What kind of research or impact study, if any, has been done to assess taxpayer affordability, particularly the impact on seniors and low-income homeowners? What is your plan to prevent displacement or housing insecurity due to rising property taxes?
Could you just repeat the first part again? What? I couldn't hear that.
Okay. What kind of research or impact study, if any, has been done to assess taxpayer affordability, particularly the impact on seniors and low-income homeowners? Thank you.
I think in fairness, the city doesn't do research on the impact other than in terms of the actual tax increase and what it amounts to. That kind of analysis would require a great deal of expense and statistical work to determine, because people's ability to pay is dependent on a number of factors, but I always keep this in the back of my head. If taxes are going up 7% this year on a basis of a $4,000 tax bill, that's $280. On a typical home at $787,000, if the value increases 1%, the value has gone up by $7,870. So I think you need to have to keep that in perspective. And particularly with respect to seniors, of course, the province does provide the program to defer taxes at a very reasonable rate. And as I've said before at these town hall meetings many times, over the years, several of my wealthier clients made a point of deferring their taxes, taking the money that they saved from deferred taxes, investing it, and with the income tax they paid on the investment return on the deferred taxes that they invested, still thought it was a better deal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next question is a general question once again. Is the city tracking the additional cost of climate on capital renewal projects? Do we know how much that is by project, such as the NAC HVAC replacement?
We can certainly provide very specific figures, and Mr. Sims could, and others tonight, about particular projects, HVAC systems that might reduce the energy expenditure. But in terms of tracking the overall cost, I think that is a almost impossible task to undertake. If we buy an electric vehicle as opposed to a gas-powered vehicle for public works, do we track that cost in terms of it being a response to climate change, or is it a response to simple good public policy? It makes economic sense to do so. Those are very, with respect to the questioners, very challenging questions in terms of their general nature, and I'd be happy to have members of council or anyone else respond if they wish, but that's the best answer I can give tonight. Mr. Sims.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'd like to ask Mr. Bryson to step forward. He's got some information specifically on the NAC project, but I would say in general, when we're planning renewal projects, it's really around adapting to climate. Like, we'll make sure that our storm drain system is robust enough to handle changed and more intense rainfalls and that sort of thing. And as you sort of hinted at, Your Worship, there's a wide range of work we do that makes good common sense and good fiscal sense that helps not only mitigate the impacts of climate change, but also helps reduce our own greenhouse gas emissions. And I think the Aquatic Center is a really good example, and I'll ask Mr. Bryson to speak to that. Thank you.
Mr. Bryson, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Good evening, Your Worship, and members of council. As Mr. Sims said, there's definitely reasons why we're doing the HVAC project at NAC. Very, very aging facility, and the systems in place right now are very inefficient. So with the changes we're making, although it's very hard, as you said, Your Worship, to track direct, climate responses, we are saving emissions by approximately 800 cubic tons of CO2 per year, which is about a reduction of about 70% on that facility, and 13% overall of our corporate facilities. So it's a pretty significant reduction in greenhouse gas that we're doing. And another project we're doing at NAC, which is not related to the HVAC, well, I guess it is in a way related to the HVAC. We have changed how we do the chemistry at the pool, as well as how we monitor the pumps, motors, the mechanical side of the pool. It's all done with a set of controllers that it measures the turbidity or the dirtiness of the water, and it will ramp up the pumps or slow down the pumps depending on the quality of the water. What it does is it creates a cleaner pool for people to swim in, but it also saves us a lot of power, and to the point where we've actually just received a $79,600 incentive rebate back from BC Hydro because of the money we're saving on our power consumption. So lots of good things. So definitely the HVAC is going to be a very good project for that facility.
Thank you very much. Mr. Burgos. We do have an individual who wants to ask a question in person, I think, so.
Sure. One coming up right now.
Mr. Manners. Councillor Thorpe wishes to respond as well.
Sorry, just before we go to the next question, Your Worship, if I may. Thanks, Mr. Bryson. I just want to assure listeners that anytime we're doing a capital project upgrade or renewal, I think we are very careful to take in climate responsibility in our decisions, and at the same time fiscal responsibility. And often, happily, those two things do go together. We save money while we're helping to save the planet to some extent. So thank you for your efforts.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. Thank you for the opportunity to ask questions. As we saw tonight with the active transportation video, Nanaimo has made visible and great progress on cycling and pedestrian infrastructures, and more projects are being planned. But is there a dedicated budget for road safety and cycling education programs, specifically for children and youth? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sims, I'm going to look to you. We work in cooperation with the school board and the RCMP and ICBC.
Thanks, Your Worship. I think that's covered it really nicely. We do meet frequently with those bodies, and we take in information as a table, and then we disseminate information back out to each of the respective parties. So that handles the road safety side of things. But there's also extensive education around active transportation, as you say, with cycling. And probably one of the programs that's really getting its feet underneath it and starting to really accelerate is the cooperation with the school district on active school travel. So this is a program where we work with each school, I should say, and their PAC to evaluate how can we encourage active transportation to the school. So in other words, we encourage the students to walk for a few minutes as a group, just a simple example. And what this does is avoids the traffic headaches that we often see around schools as parents drop off or pick up, where they're dropping their children off in a safe location, and the kids are able to walk to school. So we're seeing some great success and some great cooperation across the city with that.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thanks, Your Worship. To answer the question, I think this year's budget's $40,000 dedicated for education and marketing, $45,000 next year. I think it's $50,000 the subsequent year, and then it jumps up for the final 2 years in the budget to $75,000.
Thank you. Ms. Burgos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll take another one from the gallery. Dan?
Good evening. My question is about some of the surveillance that goes up. I've seen it intersections. There's been a real increase in a lot of the hardware that's been put up. So what percent or how much from the city budget goes into installing all the cameras and stuff at intersections, and then compiling all the data or monitoring the data and compiling it and whatever else is done with it at the end?
Mr. Sims.
Thanks, Your Worship. I don't have the figures that we've spent on compiling, but I think we bought a program in the range of about $170,000 that was in this year's budget. In addition, each intersection costs about $10,000 to $15,000 for the detectors that we're mounting on the light poles. But what it enables us to do is have a much better control of our traffic management. It's called a traffic management program. So it enables us to have the lights triggered automatically, whether it's a pedestrian or a cyclist or a vehicle in the intersection.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kim?
Thank you. And through Your Worship, this is a question to
Worship, sorry, Mr. Burgos, just to add to what Mr. Sims was saying, I just wanted to add that they're not actual cameras surveilling, they're counters for traffic management. And just under our privacy legislation that the city is mandated by, the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, the protection of privacy mandates that any program or activity that the city undertakes, such as cameras or data counters at intersections, has to go through a privacy impact assessment. and that privacy impact assessment assesses any use of personal information or surveillance, and the legislation and the law says what we can and cannot do under that. So I just wanted, that's an important piece.
Thank you very much. Mr. Burgos.
Okay, through your worship, question to city staff. Does Stewart Avenue appear in the 2026 budget as a project?
Mr. Sims.
Thanks, Your Worship. That Stewart Avenue is currently in the project plan for 2031. So in 2026, I believe in the next several weeks, Ministry of Transportation and Transit staff and city staff are meeting with the Neighborhood Association to see if there's anything that can be done in the interim, as it's certainly a concern for the Neighborhood Association. Ministry, part of the reason is the cost of the project is largely with the Ministry of Transportation and Transit.
And that's because Stewart Avenue is under their jurisdiction.
We've got more questions here online. We'd like to get to these ones. This one is to Mayor and Council. Assuming a 6.9% increase for 2026, the cumulative compound increase in Nanaimo property taxes over the 5 years, 2022 to 2026, is 39.8%. Can each member of council provide a yes or no answer to only, do you think this rate of increase is sustainable? Defining sustainable in this context as consistent with growth in property owners' capacity to pay the tax.
Not a simple question on the face of it, but I'll try and answer it, and I'll go back to what I said earlier. A 39.8% increase sounds substantial, and it is a big number percentage-wise, but again, if you're starting with a base property tax of, say, $4,000 per annum, 40%, would be $1,600 over that period of time. But a 1% increase in the average home at $787,000 is $7,800 a year. If house prices increase by 5% even, that's more like $40,000. We are stuck as municipal governments with property taxation as our main source of revenue. We don't have a lot of choices. As I remind everybody, we don't buy a lot of groceries at City Hall, but we buy a lot of steel and concrete, and the prices of those things have gone up dramatically. Mr. Sims, I think, will confirm that a sidewalk, a meter of sidewalk, is going to cost, allowing for the full cost, the installation, the materials, labor, et cetera, something in the range of $2,000 to $3,000 a meter. The pipe that was a doubling of our pipes to guarantee our water supply, that pipe was $500 a foot not installed. So my response to the question is, sustainable in what sense? We can't go without the water. People want sidewalks. People like our recreational facilities. And again, using the percentage approach to this creates an unreasonable view of property taxation. If your income goes up by 1% a year and you're making $100,000 a year, that's $1,000. If it goes up by 5% a year, that's $5,000. So again, if you play with the figures, and I'm not suggesting it's playing, but you have to step back and ask yourself, what is the base cost? Don't look so much at the percentage. What's the actual dollar increase to a citizen? At a $4,000 tax increase at 7%, rounded up, it's $280 a year. It's, 75 cents a day. Councillor Thorpe.
Well, thanks, Your Worship. And I was, I think, going to make basically the same point, that I think percentages can be very misleading, and I'm not saying that 39 is not a high percentage on the surface, but we are constantly being requested for more and better services in our city. People want more RCMP. They want and feel they need more firefighters, community safety officers, clean parks and roads and trails and so on. And all of those services cost us more money each year to provide. So property taxes do go up, but aside from the percentage, which is, as the mayor has pointed out, I think misleading, to say an increase of just over $200 in this year's taxes from last year, I don't think is unreasonable, and I don't mind saying that. People always want more. They just don't realize that we have to pay for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thanks, Your Worship. To very pointedly answer the question, yes or no, I think the answer is no. 7% compounding over 25 years, if it was maintained, would be over $1 billion. So obviously that's not sustainable. And I would just say, though, neither was the 0% increases. So that's the trouble with ratios. And when you're talking budget increases, and I think the question's probably actually pointing at around the tax burdens on households, and I think that's a different question. But could probably spend all night talking about that one. So I don't think the question is particularly fair because it leaves out a lot of important factors. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Manley.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with what's already been said. It's not sustainable to continue this way, but what happens when you have 0% or 1% increases is you have councils kicking things down the road. And the fire department's a great example of that. They've asked for increases in firefighters in 2009 and 2013. And when we looked at the fire master plan, we were far behind in the number of firefighters we needed to properly protect this community, and we had to hire 21 in 2023 and 21 in 2025. And to not do so, to not pay attention to those kind of master plans and that kind of research would be irresponsible on the part of council. So there are things that, if other councils, previous councils thought that they could just move things down the road, things just get more expensive down the road. And we're seeing that with some of our infrastructure as well. So it's important to continue to maintain our infrastructure properly, to maintain the human resources that we have, and sometimes that means increasing taxes and trying to ensure that what we do is sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Burgos.
Thank you. We've got a question from the audience here.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is the first of two questions, so later I'll be asking another one if I can. The first one that I'd like to ask is regarding asset management. We started with asset management in 2014. We're now at 2025. I believe it's projected to continue into 2028. And I haven't heard any plans for what's going to happen after that. Tonight we've been hearing a lot of percentages. Asset management, in my opinion, should have been a few years ago increased to 2%. I'm still a fan of it being increased to 2%. I think it'll help better in long-range planning. It's unusual for someone to ask, let us pay more taxes. But let's increase that asset management by 1% to 2%. Any opinions?
I think Councillor Perino wants to answer this one.
Well, thank you for the question. And, I've actually been in municipal government since 1999, so I've been here a long time, not here, but in another city. And we never did asset management, putting money away. It was the biggest mistake. If someone said, what was the biggest mistake of all of the work I'd ever done, was not putting money away. So yes, is a 1% good? 2% would be better. But that's a lot to ask of the community when we're already paying such a high price just to keep the city going. So while I agree with you, 2% would be better, at least 1% is about 1.6 million, and that's helpful. When we put that away every single year, then when we have major issues come up, they can help to pay those down. So thank you for suggesting it. I really appreciate it, but it's the one thing that I've learned being in government for a long time. Put money away under asset management. It is key to the security of the city. Thank you very much.
Councillor Brown.
Thanks, Your Worship. To you to Mr. Manners. I can't remember the exact year, but I know you're probably aware that the city of Nanaimo started taking asset management very seriously, which resulted in the 1% budgetary increase every year, and that 1% grows larger. But that was to close, I think, at the time, which was identified as a $200 million infrastructure gap, which undoubtedly is an outdated number. And there is work underway I think to ultimately refine that and get a new projected number for, you know, totaling up all the assets, the condition assessments, what their life cycle is, and ultimately, if there is a gap there, refining that 1% to be whatever is needed, but ultimately that's a policy decision that a council will need to make around whether they bump that up based on the condition assessments and the life cycle analysis of all the assets that are inventoried or not, and that is a problem. So I think if I was a betting person, I bet that number is going to come in needing to be a little bit boosted up over time, and that 1% will ultimately grow, but I will wait till those reports, if they come to this council table, are before us, and hope if it is future councils, wise decisions are made. Thank you.
Councillor Thorpe.
Your Worship, very briefly to Mr. Manners, thank you for that comment or question. I think that the discussion has been mentioned at the council table, but we have not had a serious discussion regarding bumping it from 1% to 2%. But I think, as you're well aware, and I hope most other people are aware, one of our major struggles and challenges is keeping up with replacement of aging infrastructure, especially when the costs of materials have gone up so drastically, as the Mayor mentioned earlier. So would 2% be better? Yes, it would. But we have to also recognize that although that would not come under the heading of property tax, it is a tax, and it would come out of the taxpayers' pockets as well. So we're hesitant to go in that direction at this point in time, but thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Burgos.
Thank you. This is a general question through your worship. Has the city completed an infrastructure core review? Was it used in this planning cycle?
That, I think, and I'll get Mr. Sims to respond as well, we are constantly examining and evaluating our assets, their status, their life cycle, their lifespan, their durability, etc. That is an ongoing process. Mr. Sims.
Thanks, Your Worship. I would agree with you, and I would say that it ties in a little bit with the question that was just asked around the increase in asset management funding. So periodically, and I would say every 3 to 5 years, the city staff do a very comprehensive deep dive, not only in asset valuation and growth planning, but that helps us inform the infrastructure gap that Councillor Brown was referring to. The last infrastructure gap over a 20-year, the city's 20-year investment plan was close to $1 billion. $1 billion over 20 years. So that's where we need those increases to come up. But it's exactly what we're doing. As you saw in the slideshow there was about 68% that goes just purely to asset renewal. That's where a lot of the funding goes. And I think Ms. Mercer would tell you that we're just about to start in the new year on revisiting our 20-year investment plan to reevaluate our assets, reevaluate our funding levels, and see what the infrastructure gap is.
Thank you.
Thank you. Another general question regarding upgrades to Country Club Urban Transit Area. I participated in round 1 of public engagement and read the What We Heard report. I have not heard of a second round of engagement, which is to occur in the spring. Are the upgrades to that area listed in the budget to include the completion of sidewalks on both sides of Norwell?
Mr. Sims, you're very popular tonight.
Your Worship, I wish Mr. Burgos would ask a different question that could go to somebody else. Thanks for the question. It's a good question. So Country Club Urban Center is one of the critical points. There's a significant asset management component to that, a renewal of underground infrastructures, including the intersections and the street. So currently we're looking at the next round of public engagement is to be occurring early in the new year. We expect in 2026, the spring of 2026, to have that second round of public engagement. From there, we'll get into the detailed design and construction following in later 26, perhaps 27, and dribbling into 2028. But the current plan is to upgrade the entire section of Norwell and would include active transportation components on both sides of Norwell, yes.
Short version in process.
Thank you, Mr. Sims.
Hello. My question is regarding the tax burden that's on the residents. Do you know how many hotels don't pay taxes, that they're tax exempt is what I've understood? And then how many businesses, you don't have to give a number, but there's so many businesses and organizations that apply for tax exemptions. So that plus every year there's oodles and oodles of people getting tax exempt, which just keeps tipping it more to the residents' shoulders. So would you reduce or make the hotels pay taxes? Is that that would help?
We have a bylaw that provides for tax exemptions for new construction. Hotels are not exempt as a general rule from taxation. In terms of all the other organizations, the not-for-profits, the churches who deliver various social services to the community, those are all publicly listed and available. And Ms. Mercer can provide you with the portion of the website where it's available. And I think Mr. Lindsay wanted to comment.
I think you answered it, Your Worship, in that the city's had a long-standing tax exemption program, a short-term tax exemption program to encourage more hotels. There's been, I don't know the number off the top of my head. I can think of a couple projects issued under that, but you're right, the majority of hotels in the city do certainly pay tax, and when those tax exemption programs end, those new projects will also be paying tax.
Just
sorry, Councilor Manning.
A quick point. I think that the permissive tax exemptions for religious organizations and nonprofits, that's part of the community charter, correct? So that's provincial legislation?
And Ms. Mercer can answer this better, but there's some, you're correct, there's some provision under provincial legislation where they're automatically exempt. Municipalities don't have a choice, and then there's others which are left to the discretion of local government to determine.
And the ones that we have discretion over are tend to be nonprofit, charitable organizations.
That's generally correct. If I recall, there's a minimum area that's allotted to each religious institution, and over a certain size, it becomes the determination of local government. And you're right, generally nonprofits.
And as well, you mentioned hospitals as well, and provincial and federal buildings.
So that's a good point, Your Worship, but certainly other things like hospitals, the Port Authority, ferry terminal, crown type uses in the community don't pay taxes directly, but many of those pay what's called PILTs or payments in lieu of taxes. So we do get some payments from those.
Thanks for the clarification.
We have a question for Mr. Astley.
Hi, how's it going tonight? I just wanted to ask if you could, it's a two-part to this question, if you could detail the projected cost to the city of grants over $25,000, and then second, the projected cost to the city of grants under $25,000.
Again, any grants that are given are publicly on the website and available, both below and above?
Yes, Your Worship, you're correct. So in the, each year the city puts out the Statement of Financial Information, and it is listed in there. And I believe the threshold is $25,000 that we are required to list out, and we do. But that is done on an annual basis.
Publicly available. Not going to give you a list tonight off the top of my head, sorry.
All right.
Online, the question is a general question. Can we please have more information about the funding plans for the Loudon Boathouse? Will the clubs pay market rental rates for the areas that are for their use only, for example, storage and training? Will the amount of fundraising they contribute be agreed upon in a way that is equitable to taxpayers? I'm concerned about our tax dollars being spent on this when there are far bigger priorities that need to be funded first.
By way of a general answer, subject to what Ms. Bhopal Singh will tell us, we're at the very early stages of a replacement for the washrooms at Loudon Park and any construction of any facility, including community space there. So it's a bit premature to try and answer some of the very specific question, but Ms. Bhopal Singh, you have some comments, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the city has a number of different agreements, over 85, with different amateur sports, arts, and culture groups. many of whom pay between $1 to $0 for the leases of properties. So for example, we have the curling club, we have the Raiders, the Hornets, the football club, and the principle on which the city has been working with these groups is that in return for accessible community services that can be provided by these nonprofits at an affordable rate, we provide them with far lower or 0% in return for those services. Then we also have some larger agreements with things like the Port Theatre, the Art Gallery, where we provide operating agreements in addition to low lease costs and building maintenance. So with regard to Loudon, we would be looking at likely a model that follows the curling club, the football club, and some of those other recreational groups, and negotiating an agreement with them. But you're right, it's still at the early stages, and so that's the way we'd be approaching it. We'd be looking at an equitable view of that sporting group amongst all the other relationships we have throughout the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your worship, so can we just add, because part of the question was information about the funding plans for Loudon Boathouse. I think we should answer that part of the question, but because it is a combination of previous budgets that council's approved and additional resources through reserves. But maybe if Ms. Mercer has that breakdown, or Ms. Bhopal-Singh has that breakdown on hand. This was just recently considered by council, of course, just last week at the Finance and Audit Committee. Has not come forward for council, so we do not have a final direction on that at this point. But based on the option that was in front of council last week, the option that was selected from memory had approximately $5 million from existing budgets, and the remaining amounts coming from reserves.
Ms. Mercer, I'll let Councillor Thorpe speak while you're looking. Please.
Thanks, Your Worship, and I think Ms. Bhopal-Singh provided quite a good answer just a moment ago to at least the major question that was asked. But I just wanted to clarify, because the question references plans for the Loudon Boathouse, and I think it's very important to recognize that this project is a park improvement project. It includes boathouse and boat storage facilities for sure. But it also, more importantly, includes provision for community activity space and improved washrooms, as was pointed out. So it's much more than just replacing a boathouse. This is a popular park and a popular place for our residents, especially in the summer season. This will bring about a major improvement for accessibility. And also in terms of the funding, I will point out that the paddling and rowing community are actively fundraising and have been for some time to contribute towards this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mercer, anything to add now?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So the additional funding to get us to that $10.2 million dollar value, $2,675,000 comes from the Special Initiatives Reserve, $2,248 comes from the Strategic Infrastructure Reserve Fund, and $57,170 comes from Sewer Operations Reserve. That's in addition to the original budget that was already set aside.
Thank you very much. Councillor Eastmere?
Thank you. And just for clarification, were we also including the 1.3 million for the non-building improvements when we approved that C1 direction?
Through the chair to Councillor Eastmere, no, council specifically didn't add the 1.3 million in, and actually it's finance and audit. So this is an item that has yet to go before council. So council will be making its decision based on the finance and audit recommendation. So the finance and audit recommendation was specifically for the building and dock and other things specific to that. So the additional 1.3 was not included. Thank you.
I actually, yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, and I'll admit I completely missed that. I thought that it was implied that all of the options we were discussing, we were also committing to the exterior non-building upgrades as well. So more to come on that.
Thank you.
A question to Mayor and Council. Nanaimo's Crime Severity Index and crime rate are far lower today than they were previous to 2006 and have been in decline since peaking in 2019.
As policing does not prevent crime, but rather enforces a law when a crime has been committed, why is the city increasing the budget for the RCMP again? Wouldn't that money be better spent on removing conditions known to cause crime such as homelessness?
Several things in response. The obvious is that the number of RCMP working for the city under contract to the Ministry of the Solicitor General is increasing because our population is increasing. If you had 10 police officers handling it for a population of 1,000 people, and now you've got 2,000 people, you obviously need more police officers. The second factor is, of course, and that should be obvious as well, that the RCMP wages themselves and their benefits have increased substantially over the last few years. And finally, with response to the general comments around we should be talking about the root causes of crime, with respect, and I will sound a bit defensive here, municipal governments do not deliver health care and addiction services. We do not build housing, public housing. We do not deliver services that are designed to lift people out of poverty. We don't provide social assistance, those things. Those things are provided by provincial and to a lesser extent the federal governments. If we simply decided we weren't going to increase the number of police officers or increase the police budget and reduce the number of officers by not increasing the budget in light of the fact that there are wage increases annually, then we'd be reducing police services. And if you give that money over to what is a provincial responsibility, I can assure you of one thing only. The province will stop delivering the services. The municipal ratepayers who pay it by way of property taxes, which most people find to be one of the most regressive forms of taxation, will be burdened with something that is a collective responsibility. If the only people on our streets who were our citizens and we lived in a corralled place, you might have an argument, and if that was what the law said, a municipal responsibility. But the reality is, the Constitution of this country guarantees the right of everyone to live where they will in Canada. And these responsibilities under the Constitution for the kinds of things that would eliminate or reduce poverty, reduce the ravages of what the vulnerable face every day, are in fact a provincial responsibility. Councillor Manley. Oh, pardon me. Councillor Armstrong, sorry.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to add a couple points on that. And that the crime severity index is not always the best indicator too, because we're talking about most serious crimes such as homicide, et cetera. And most homicides are not linked to poverty. They're linked to either your domestic partner or organized crime. That's just one small example. But the thing that really upsets people the most are the petty crimes, where you can't leave your car in your driveway. It's getting broken into, your windows are getting smashed. Those are the things that really have more of an impact on the general public than actually the crime severity index. Because as I stated, most crimes that are severe are usually done to people that they know, and it's normally a domestic partner or an organized crime figure. I just wanted to throw out that distinction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I would also say that homelessness is not a criminal issue. Homeless people, we have almost 1,000 homeless people in our community, and most of them are not involved in any criminal activity at all. In fact, they're preyed upon by criminals, and the criminal activities, the B&Es and that kind of stuff, that's not necessarily homeless people that are doing that. That are other people that are far more organized than people who are struggling with affordability and end up homeless in our street, seniors living in their cars, working people staying at a shelter, people with disabilities staying at a shelter. It's not a direct correlation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take a first question from a member of the audience.
Sorry, this is not really a question, it's a statement, obviously.
Sir, please, make it a question. The concept is not to have statements tonight. This is an opportunity for citizens to ask questions. Can you phrase it in the form of a question, I hope?
I think I probably could, yes.
I'm sure you could.
I would like to ask the council, mayor and council, why they ask city staff for what they want, as opposed to what the taxpayers of Nanaimo can afford. And I believe that they cannot afford a 7% increase in this year, nor in the several years previous. And this is not an isolated increase. everything is going up in price, and this is one aspect of every day's budget. And so if we could think, what can we afford and not do we want, would be, I think, a better way of approaching the problem, which will always be with us, but...
I think you've asked your question, and your
Thank
question
you.
is why do we ask our workers what they want, as opposed to hearing them ask us what they want? I think it's fair to say that's not the approach that Mr. Van Horn, who would be highly offended, and the Manager of Human Resources sitting just in front of you, would be highly offended if you suggested that he goes down to the negotiating table with CUPE, for instance, or the International Association of Firefighters, and said, so what would you folks like this year? We'll be happy to give it to you. I appreciate what you're saying, but I think you've been here tonight and you've heard various answers around the whole issue of the tax increase. We are one municipality amongst many in this province. There's over 200 municipal governments in British Columbia, including the regional districts. And often the pattern for increases is set in other communities, and all we'd be looking at facing potentially would be a strike if we were somewhat out of line. Our increases have not been out of line in the last few years, and I don't anticipate they will in the near future. Councillor Brown, please.
Thanks, Your Worship. And I think if, trying to understand the question, maybe trying to look at it a little more broadly, I can appreciate that at the budget process sometimes looks like staff are coming forward and making requests for this capital plan or not capital plan. But that's not actually, I think, how the process unfolds. Any given year or any project planning, such as the OCP or Transportation Master Plan or water master plan, all of those identify priorities, both capital projects and operational matters that are to be implemented or upgraded, and then of course council gives direction throughout the year on any given year. And what comes forward is essentially questions to council or policy items to council around service levels, capital increases, and council makes a determination on whether they think those are priorities. Those often result in budget drivers. So it's not necessarily staff coming forward and asking for increases. It's staff coming forward and saying, in order to meet council's priorities and in order to meet the policy objectives or the service levels desired by the community, this is what it's going to cost. And then council makes a determination. Sometimes they say, no, we'll keep the existing service level, and other times they'll result in an increase. So I do think it's an unfair way to characterize that relationship, but I can appreciate that it may look like that sometimes through the presentations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown. Mr. Burgos.
We have a question from Mr. Manners. Second question.
Mr. Manners.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. It was nice hearing our mayor talk about the RCMP and how we need them and how we need the increases. I don't have any issues with that. One thing that I do have an issue about and I have a question about is the CSOs we have in Nanaimo. We have gone from 2 officers working in the CSOs, similar type of office, and now we're looking at 20. That's in about 5-6 years. And my question is, how long are we going to keep looking after covering the CSOs, the work that they do? How much longer are we going to have to pay for an increase, an increase, an increase? That is the largest percentage increase we have in anything in our city of Nanaimo. Could I get a response, please?
I'll respond in a general way, and I'm sure many members of council may wish to respond. The setting up of the community safety officers in our community followed the example of Maple Ridge and other communities where it's been done, and it has become very common now across this province. As municipal governments struggle to deal with the street disorder that arises from what I constantly refer to as the mental health, addictions, trauma, and brain injury crisis that often manifests itself in homelessness and the petty crime associated with drug dealing that Councillor Manley has referred to. The lack of response from our healthcare system to the many vulnerable who are in our streets Our CSOs perform a valuable function, not just in saving lives, but connecting people with services, providing a sense of security to our citizens, the businesses, and the people who work in them, and provide assistance to the RCMP who cannot be everywhere. In the dream society that I'd love to live in, where the rates of poverty weren't what they were, where children were all raised in safe, secure environments, where every young person who started to suffer from some mental health issue, for instance, which often leads to self-medication and drug use, were getting the proper care, we wouldn't need CSOs, certainly not in the numbers that we do. But again, those issues are beyond the control and the ability to solve of municipal governments. We have neither, as I've said over and over again, the legal responsibility, the jurisdiction, or the resources to solve those issues. And I must tell you, as a British Columbian, as a Canadian, as someone who was born and raised on this island, we can look to Europe, and I'll get off my high horse very quickly, Council, don't worry. We can look to European countries where you do not see this kind of street disorder and the crime and the open drug use and all of the things that disturb citizens. There are examples and there are better ways to do this, but it requires a significant commitment, but it's not going to be municipal government that's going to solve it. If I've inspired Council to say anything further, please do. All right, thank you, Mr. Manners. Next question, please.
To Mayor and Council, in recent years, Nanaimo property taxes have increased a significant amount over inflation, CPI, averaging over 5% a year. Do you think this is affordable and sustainable for residents, particularly seniors whose income is fixed and receive only minor increases? Can the property tax increase be limited to a maximum of CPI? What will be the increase in property taxes in 2026?
I think the answers to that question has been given already by various members of Council tonight, and I'll try not to repeat it. Again, the increases that we see in the things that we purchase as a city, particularly around anything relating to capital improvements, reflect the marketplace. And that is not the Consumer Price Index. It's called the Consumer Price Index for a reason. It's the stuff that each and every one of us buys. What's the cost of a dozen eggs today? What's the price of gas this week? What's the hydro rate for your house? What's your oil heating bill if you still have an oil heater? All of those things. But what we purchase and buy on behalf are different. And moreover, our workers expect to be paid. And notwithstanding what some people wish to believe, and Mr. Van Horn would back me up if I singled him out tonight, it's getting hard to fill positions at City Hall, particularly those that require significant levels of skill or experience. It's a constant challenge. So can I tell you what the increase is going to be for sure in 26, 27, which I think was the question? No, I can't. Can I tell you what we're looking at for next year in and of itself? We've heard of a number tonight from Ms. Mercer. The final decision on it has not been made by Council, and we will have to make that decision. But again, I emphasize, and I appreciate the attitude of seniors who don't wish to take advantage of the tax deferral program that the province offers. I understand that. I've never liked debt myself. First thing my wife and I did when we were young and had kids was to get the mortgage paid off as quick as we can. But having said that, there should not be an expectation when you're in your 60s and 70s and 80s that it's, how shall I say, somehow improper of you to defer your taxes. Take advantage of that program provided by the province of British Columbia because the value of your home, by and large, over time, maybe not every year, but over time will increase far more significantly than the amount of taxes you will owe under the tax deferral program. And I say this rather bluntly, it is not the job of all of us to ensure that those of us who have the benefit of home ownership get to maintain and sustain an asset so we can leave a larger estate for our children. That is a reality. I think it's not bad public policy. It enables people to stay in their homes during their lifetimes when it's important, and after they're gone, so be it. Then the other taxpayers of British Columbia will get the money returned to them appropriately and it'll go back into the system.
Just a little quick addition to
Councilman.
that. I just looked up what the interest rate is on the tax deferral program, and it is 2.95%, which is less than I get on my latest GIC offer. So I could take a deferral and put the money for my taxes into a GIC and end up with more money at the end of the day.
Thank you. Mr. Burgos.
A general question. What criteria was used to prioritize projects in this budget? How does the criteria evaluate projects for critical needs against projects that some may consider special interest or wants? And how much of the new spending benefits the broad public?
I'm going to offer a general comment first and then a couple of specifics, then I'll ask staff and council members to reply. As I've said many times, I don't skate in the ice arena. I don't swim in the pool. There's all kinds of things that are provided by the city that get paid for by my taxes, just like they get paid for by your taxes. I do occasionally get some time to walk in the parks, and I drive on the city roads, and I'm delighted to have clean water come through that tap every day and know that when I flush, I'm not going to face something dreadful. I'm very conscious of that. I'm pleased that my road gets plowed. But again, none of us use all of the services. So the premise of the question that special interest user, et cetera, we all need different things at different times. One of the questions tonight related to school safety, getting kids to school. When you're a young parent and you've got kids walking to school, that's the most important thing to you. When you're 70 or 75, maybe it's ensuring that the snowplow, in fact, plows the route to the hospital so that if you're in trouble, you get there quickly. Or that, we ensure that we have firefighters who can get to you quickly when you have that heart attack, so you get the health care you deserve. So those are the general comments I would make about that question. And in terms of priorities, Mr. Sims used to have a thick head of hair. I'm teasing him slightly when I say this. But determining which projects get fixed every year is a complex process. Council doesn't participate in it except to make the decisions ultimately on the budget and take the responsibility for it. But every year we are weighing up things which are important and the ability of taxpayers to foot the bill and what is politically possible and reasonable. Some people will say the most important thing in the community, particularly if you're in the South End right now, is to get that Oliver Woods equivalent, that community facility built so you can have meetings and you can play pickleball and your kids can maybe get some childcare or whatever, or maybe it's the Harewood, lighting at the Harewood skate park, which is going to cost $390,000. I'm told we've had I think 2 or 3 letters today from parents saying, oh, please make this a priority. It's a very useful project. It would enable kids to skateboard late at night, hopefully not get into trouble, wear out their energy. But is it a priority over a crosswalk? No. How do we determine this? Very challenging. But sometimes political decisions get made, and political in the sense that it gets to council and we have to decide whether we're going to proceed with something or not. At some point, council makes decisions around land acquisitions. Even though it may be a park that most of us won't get to, it's more of a neighborhood park, but we'll buy the land and we'll ensure it's available for public use. Again, I come back to some of the recreational facilities that some of us don't use at all. But that's the nature of politics, and I say this in a fatherly way, that's the nature of community and family. We all contribute to the pot, we all hope that some benefit comes back to us, and we all, I would hope, have a sense of community and pride in knowing that we contributed to making this the kind of city where people want to live. And with great respect, the increase in our population year after year, according to StatsCan, would indicate that overall this city, and I'm not saying this council, but this city and its citizens have done a pretty good job.
Your Worship, just noting the time, it's been about an hour. My suggestion would probably be to go to 9, should you feel inclined, and then we could have our break and carry on with the remainder meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Gesselbrock and then Councillor Brown.
That's okay.
See, I even wore cross Councillor Gesselbrock out with my ranting.
Your Worship, I would just encourage people, if they're interested in how all those different diverse and broad items come together and try to be prioritized in a way that has rationality of both policy items and just hard infrastructure to the city's integrated action plan. It is a work in progress, but it's an excellent document, and if you look at it constantly gets updated, and the most recent presentation on it was at the November 28th Special Finance and Audit Committee meeting, and you can see the presentation by staff and some updates to that document as well. So just add that for if people want to understand. Thanks.
Thank you.
We will take a question from the audience.
I have two questions because I think I got missed before. Is the churches that have apartments attached to them, is the whole building tax exempt or just the area of the church is one? And earlier in the videos that you had, it said the CSOs make a noticeable difference.
Sorry, I didn't catch that. The CSOs what?
It said, the woman said, the CSOs are making a noticeable difference. What kind of a difference was that? Like,
the noticeable difference
yep. And
is
I
in,
went, well, that doesn't explain anything. Just in visual, or is it like crime's gone down?
you can argue it's crime gone down, but I would say one of the most noticeable differences is that the businesses in the downtown area in particular have commented to city staff that they have an improved sense of safety, that there's improved cleanliness, that those who have been literally rescued or brought back with naloxone administered by our staff would say that's made a difference in their lives. And I'm going to let you do the two-part question here, just out of a sense of kindness tonight. In terms of housing facilities, I assume you're referring to something like Brecon, the former site of Brecon United. Yes, nodding head. Ms. Mercer.
Thank you, Your Worship. So only the part of the land and building that are used for worship or the parking area for the church is what is exempted. Any residential or non-worship use is taxable.
Thank you. Mr. Burgos.
Thank you. Another question from the audience?
Yeah, just a follow-up question from Mr. Ainsley's. On the topic of grants under 25,000, just what would be the total? Not a list of grants or who gets them or anything, but just a sum, just a total of how much does a city give out in grants under $25,000 in a year? That's all.
Your Worship, we have different grant streams, social development grant streams. We have downtown event grant streams. So I don't have one number off the top of our head, but we can certainly make sure that we get back and follow up on that.
Would it be something that you could put a total in, like for the public, rather than we have to go through and find all the individual ones and add them up? All I'm looking for is like a summary, just like what big of a chunk do we give out in grants under $25,000?
Understand the question, Worship, and yes, we can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take another one from the audience.
Since the mayor signed on with the Global Covenant of Mayors and he has access to something called Invest for Cities, how much financing has the city received through this program?
I think I can safely say a big fat zero. Am I correct, Ms. Mercer?
That's correct.
Yes, Your Worship, you are correct.
Thank you. Zero.
And why have we not gotten money through here when there's all kinds of financing available to the Global Covenant of Mayors, which you signed? Why have we not been using some of that financing?
I'm going to accept the second question and say that the kinds of programs you may or may not be talking about, and I'm not sure, because I'm not aware of them, and when I signed the Global Covenant of Mayors, that wasn't the point of it. It was a statement around the importance of all of us trying to create societies in which the most vulnerable are looked after, that we try and respect the planetary limits in which we live, and that we try and create, maintain, and build livable cities. Thank you. Mr. Burgos.
Next question. Next question is to Mayor and Council. If private corporate management can reduce the cost of their products by growing, why can't the city reduce its property taxes with the growth of its population?
I wish it were as simple as a straightforward line between the growth in the city and the taxation levels, but it's not that simple. One is working on the assumption that you're starting with some perfect base and that everything's taken care of. At any given time, the city is just like most households. Maybe your roof needs replacing, but can't do it this year, the car broke down. Maybe your refrigerator is sounding a little wonky, but you can't afford that because your kid needs hockey gear. There is no perfect basis on which to suggest that simply adding another household in terms of property, a developed home, for instance, is going to provide the exact level of taxation that will sustain the services and provide for the increased population. Mr. Lindsay, and then Councillor Gesselbrock.
Your Worship, I think you said it well. The only thing I would add is certainly in our budget, we do factor in growth and new tax revenues that come from growth. So that this year is approximately, if I recall, about 1.1 million. So close to about 1% tax increase that if we didn't have that growth, we'd otherwise be looking at additional tax increase. So it does help, but it certainly doesn't cover all, as you said, does not cover all expenses.
Councillor Gesselbrock.
Thanks, Mayor, through you. I think, concern of things becoming more and more unaffordable is a concern, and one of the biggest policies that we do have in trying to make sure that our growth is more affordable is a lot of our policy around densification of the city. And that's why, in our official community plan, we try to densify around the downtown and the urban nodes, because the denser your city is, the less meters of sewer, water line, roads is needed to service a unit of housing. And really expensive cities are ones that are spread way apart, and you have to spend a lot of money per house getting that infrastructure to it. And so one of the things to make sure that our taxes do cover the cost of our infrastructure is looking at that policy around densification. And it's a way to more affordably provide the infrastructure, also transportation options, and many other services, because frankly, we do need to be concerned about affordability, and we need to build our city wisely so that it is that in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before we get to our last questions, I just wanted to note we still have many questions left. With the time that we have, we won't be getting to those questions. However, I want to let those people know, whether they're here in the audience or at home watching at home, that we will endeavor to get their questions answered and share them on the city website. I just wanted to let people know that. The next question is to General. To what extent is new development in Nanaimo subsidized by short, medium, and long-term residents?
And that was youth development. New development, oh, sorry. I was hoping someone would ask a positive question about doing something for young people. To what extent is new development financed? Mr. Lindsay, you're going to jump in, but...
Well, first of all, I'd say whoever wrote this question wasn't a developer, because developers would say that they do not receive incentives from the city to develop generally. We've talked already tonight about a couple tax exemption programs, which are a small part to help initiate development, but not to actually provide funds. We're having as council's aware, a very kind of community-wide and active debate right now about development cost charges, which is a way of making sure that development actually pays its fair share for the infrastructure that's required to grow a community. So I would say the answer to that question is there is no direct subsidy that's provided to encourage development.
Indeed, it's arguable that it's the opposite. When subdivisions were developed in this community several decades ago, there wouldn't be a requirement that you pay for sidewalks necessarily, or the water and sewer, or all of those things. But now I redevelop, and I don't, but if I did redevelop a piece of property in Nanaimo, I'd be looking at putting in the sidewalk, I'd be looking at the underground infrastructure, all of those things. And that is fairly costly. And that cost, obviously, directly, indirectly gets passed on to the consumer who purchases that property. And that is one of the reasons we have for the gap tooth complaints that many neighborhoods have around the provision of sidewalks, for instance, where if you're lucky enough to be in the new place, you've got a sidewalk out front, and if you're in the house that's been there for 50 years, you may not have a sidewalk until someone buys your old house and redevelops that property. Because, and I come back to the figure I used earlier, and most of you have been here all night, if you want the city to start putting sidewalks on every street that has houses on it at $2,000 to $3,000 a meter, well, if 7.1% or 6.9% seems an unpalatable figure for a tax increase, I think Mr. Sims would change his name and run from town because it would be incredibly expensive to deliver those kind of services. I said it today at a luncheon meeting of distinguished folks in Nanaimo with their heads on and brains between their ears. The trouble, as I have said many, many times, we are the victims / beneficiaries of amalgamation in this community more so than other places. We are 91.3 square kilometers, 22 kilometers long, with a somewhat few thousand more population than the city of Victoria, which I think rests on something like 18.9 or 19.2 square kilometers. We're over 4 times the size. And if you think you're going to get sidewalks on every street and all those kinds of amenities in this geographic location, it just isn't reasonable to expect it unless we're prepared to increase taxes substantially. So as the city grows and densifies, things will improve as they do in various neighborhoods, not as consistently as we would like, but when you're dealing with a community of this size, that is a reality. And it's not the only explanation or excuse, but it is one that is absolutely unavoidable. As I remind everyone, people often say, and the bike enthusiasts in particular, why can't we be like Amsterdam, sorry. Oh, Mr. Van der Zam may have come from Amsterdam. At 219 square kilometers and a population of 975,000, it's a heck of a lot easier to deliver all of those services in a much confined area in comparison. Someone's tapping their watch telling me I talk too much. You're quite right, sir. My wife does it occasionally too. Mr. Burgos.
Should be limited to 2 minutes. Next question. To Mayor and Council, what steps is the city taking to freeze or reduce the number of city staff employees over the next 5 years?
Councillor Thorpe.
Sure, thanks, Your Worship. I think the reality is that as our city grows, and it's growing very quickly, we need more staff to provide the same level of service that our residents have come to expect. And I think a hiring freeze, quite frankly, is unrealistic, but I do say this, and it was mentioned earlier in the presentation by Ms. Mercer. Anytime there is a proposal for a new staff or a new position, there has to be a business case which comes to council, and we look at it, judge it, evaluate it, and we approve it or not. So we have control over that, and we take that responsibility seriously, and we look very closely at new hires and new positions that are created. So I don't think a freeze is realistic, but I think we have to be responsible as we try to deal with our growing population and accommodate the level of service that people expect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question is a general question. Could you make a comment on trends in the split between industrial, commercial, residential taxes in the city? I'm concerned that we are not getting enough new industry to protect our residential base.
Ms. Mercer, can you give us the exact percentages in terms of both the rate of taxation on industrial versus commercial versus residential properties, et cetera, and what they produce by way of revenue?
I will have to look that up, Your Worship.
Okay.
I'll pull up the spreadsheets. I can only give 2025.
Sorry?
I can only do for 2025 as a percentage, yeah.
I think the thrust of the question is, and it's making a valid point, industry pays a much higher rate of tax than residential owners. And so that means if you have no industrial base, and let's look at a small community like Crofton with the pulp mill, or the city of Alberni, if you don't have an industrial tax base, then you're going to have much higher residential taxes or higher commercial taxes. That's just a simple reality. but Ms. Mercer can probably provide those figures before the night's out.
Your worship, maybe while Ms. Mercer's just given another second to look that up, I think the one thing I would add that the question seems to be focusing on is, do we have enough industrial? And that's one of those things leading up to the most recent review of city plan that council acknowledged through our land use reviews, is that we don't have enough industrial land. And council made a couple of very substantive changes to your city plan to add more industrial designated lands in the community, partly for economic development, business purposes, but also I think to respond to this very question about making sure we diversify our tax. If we don't have the answer right now to the percentages, we'll make sure we follow up on the when we answer these questions online later this week.
Yep. You have another third time question. Councillor Brown, sorry.
Thanks. I would just say the trends are very context specific. Like I know Vancouver had a pilot project to reduce some of the, I think it was industrial or light industrial rates by up to 50%. I don't know what the conclusion, that was a few years ago. Edmonton was facing a lot of pressure and considered to be kind of anti-competitive industrial tax rates, so I believe they were lowering. But at the same time, there's other places that have been looking to increase commercial industrial rates to combat high residential taxation burden for infrastructure. So it's very context specific depending on the city for general trends across the country. Thanks.
Thank you.
We have one last question from the audience.
How much of the budget is for emission reduction infrastructure when the Stantec report shows that the money spent so far on emission reduction has not reduced the emissions in any sector to this point?
Mr. Lindsay.
Your worship, I'm not sure what Stantec report we're referring to. I think we have examples where the city's invested for various reasons in upgrades to our facilities. We heard about one tonight in the Aquatic Center where we are upgrading the HVAC system. We are not upgrading that system to reduce GHGs. It happens to be one of the benefits of a program in a facility that needs to be upgraded. So to say what is the percentage or what is the figure, there is no easy way to determine that number. So for example, on the HVAC program, it will result in reduced GHGs, but will also reduce our energy consumption at the building. It'll also improve the internal air quality at the building. So it's hard to say how do you allocate which percentage to that. It's an overall benefit across a number of areas.
Stantec is the reporting that you report to through the RDN, and it clearly shows that all the money that we've spent on all the HVACs and all the other emission reduction stuff so far has been an epic fail.
Ms.
At one point, do we stop implementing it all when it's being an epic fail? All of the emissions have actually increased. They haven't decreased. We haven't even reached the 2010 target yet, and you want to be 50 to 58% below that target by 2030. How do you plan on accomplishing it?
I think we have your point, but I believe reference was made to the RDN.
To be honest, I think that the point being, as a community, as a country, we're not meeting our GHG reduction targets. I'm talking about, earlier I was giving the example of corporately, where in our buildings, in our facilities, making efforts at reducing, and we will be substantially reducing our GHGs with the one program we talked about here tonight, which is the HVAC program at the pool. But as a community, as a country, no, we continue to miss our targets. I agree and understand that.
Councillor Brown?
Yeah, just for clarity, Your Worship, I believe Stantec was the firm hired to complete the regional district of Nanaimo's climate action plan, not the city of Nanaimo's action plan. So there might be some confusion there.
I'm sorry, but we'd like to listen to Councillor Brown's answer. Thank you.
Yeah, so undoubtedly, City of Nanaimo is within the RDN, but they are separate bodies and have their own separate plans. Thanks.
Mr. Burgos.
If I may, one more question, Your Worship. This is to Mayor and Council. Has the Mayor and Council considered the fact that 70% of the fire department's call-outs are for medical aid? Has the city explored a more economical solution than the deployment of a fire truck with a full complement of firefighters?
Ms. Chief Doyle, Perhaps you could come down and answer that one. I think that question's been asked in various forms many times over a few years and relates to provincial policy and response times, etc. Please, thank you. Look, I'm sorry. Everyone else has been polite tonight and listened. I'd ask you to be quiet, please.
Can you repeat the question, please? The question, oh, it's disappeared on me. Here you go. Has the mayor and council considered the fact that 70% of the fire department's callouts are for medical aid? Has the city explored a more economical solution than the deployment of a fire truck with a full complement of firefighters?
Chief.
Okay, this is a pretty complex question. Firstly, 70% is a bit high. It's not actually 70%. It's generally in the mid 60%. It typically aligns with what most other communities are for medical aids. I'd like to take this time to remind, or just to say that the public has been responding to medical calls in the city of Nanaimo for over half a century. In some cases, close to a century in the province. Pre-hospital care for the fire service isn't new. It's been going on for decades. It's a complementary service to all the other services we provide. We respond to fires, hazmat calls, technical rescue, wildfires. It's the whole. We are an all hazards responder. So, in terms of responding with smaller units, certainly. In Nanaimo, just geographically, we've talked about other communities, Lower Mainland, the Capital Regional District, Victoria, and the communities around them. They have a network of departments they can rely on, so they have the opportunity to staff a little bit differently than us. We don't have the same network of fully full service responders near our community that we can use as backup and the like. So in our master plan, we chose to staff the engines first, and then the next phase of the master plan actually looks at having smaller units for exactly what the questioner was asking about. So phase 3 of the master plan in totality called for 2 full staffed units and then 2 smaller units. And in our case, because of our geographic reasons and our staffing models, we chose to go with the engines first and then go with the smaller units at the end. And that does allow for greater response to more complex incidents like wildfires. We've talked a lot about development in this discussion tonight. As we grow denser, more vertical, those are more resource intensive. And then just maintaining long duration incidents when multiple incidents are going on at any given time. I'd also like to remind people that when we're out at our all hazards responses, we don't have to respond to medical calls if we're going to somewhere else. So we have the opportunity to turn them on or turn them off as we have resources. We try to respond to them all, but if there's other non-medical calls that have a higher priority that we're not already attending at, we just don't leave out, of course, but then that's what we respond to. So I hope that's a comprehensive answer enough for the question.
Thank you very much, and if I just might add, if you're having your heart attack, I don't think you're going to care whether the firefighters get there first, the ambulance, as long as someone gets there in time to save your life. Thank you very much, Chief Doyle. Thank you, everyone, tonight. Ms. Mercer, you've got the response.
I do have a response to the industrial rate question. So currently, for 2025, because that's the last information I have, the major and light industry tax rates were just a bit over 3 times that of residential rates. And just for a bit of context, over several years, starting around 2008, the city made a conscious effort to reduce major and light industry tax rates to be in line with Class 6, which is the business rate. And this was to kind of mitigate any heavy reliance on industrial taxpayers, as around that time mills were closing and communities were losing their biggest taxpayers. So at that time, I think it was a 3-year period, we transitioned the tax rates down to be in line with that business class. And that's why when you compare to some other communities, we have a bit lower rate on our major and light industries, just because that was a conscious effort made by the council of the day.
Thank you very much. Mr. Burgos, to you, your team, to all the members of the audience who participated tonight, those at home, so to speak, who sent their questions in to be answered tonight, much appreciated everyone's participation. I hope it was useful and enlightening for some folks. And if I dribble on too long, I do apologize. It's my nature. I used to get paid by the word, so to speak. Councillor Manley, something you wish to add? Thank you. We'll take the evening break now.
Around every corner and under every corner, the city has assets, infrastructure that quietly adds convenience to our day-to-day living. From the pipes that carry our water and wastewater, to the roads that we walk, cycle, and drive on, to the amazing parks facilities that keep us active. We depend on this infrastructure without really thinking about its upkeep. That is, until something goes wrong. In April 2020, the water main that runs beneath Bowen Road broke and burst in a big way.
I don't think there's anything we depend upon in this community more than our water supply. We have dams, we have a reservoir, we have a water treatment plant, we have big water trunk mains and distribution mains, fire hydrants, and all kinds of other pieces of infrastructure totaling $1.5 billion that all bring water to our 100,000 residents. We have to be really careful to plan and make sure that that system is robust and resilient so that nobody's ever without water.
The water main on Bowen Road was quickly repaired, and recognizing that the entire water main was at risk, a plan was quickly moved forward to replace it with the Midtown water supply, a new seismically safe water main built for future growth and expected to last for nearly a century. A parallel and backup water main has also been installed and can be used whenever the main line needs repairs.
When we plan to replace our assets, our underground infrastructure, our facilities, all of those sorts of things, we want to make sure we're future-proof as possible. We're really looking out for the long-term best interest of the community. And so we want to make sure that the infrastructure is resilient, it's hardened, and it has sufficient capacity for growth, for unpredictable events such as earthquakes or wildfires, and we want to make sure that we're protecting the environment as much as possible.
Making smart, modern improvements and focusing on sustainability applies to all of the city's asset management planning, regardless of a project scale.
As our infrastructure ages and it becomes time to replace it, because that's really part of the asset management life cycle, we always strive to replace with newer technology, more effective, more efficient fixtures, or even enhancing and taking advantage of newer technology. So a few examples would be LED streetlights, replacing the old high-pressure sodium, very environmentally invasive, with LED, much more focused and much less cost of electricity. Another example would be the boilers in our pools. We're getting away from the intensive GHG gas boilers and shifting more and more to electric, and still using the old ones as backup. Another great example that we like to point to, it's been really relatively under the radar for the last 10 years, is at our #1 reservoir, we actually, as we fill the reservoir, generate electricity and sell that back to the grid to the tune of about $100,000 a year.
Even with the city's best planning, the unpredictable can happen, such as the water main break on Bowen Road. Planning for the unexpected is one more reason why the city maintains an asset management fund. With $4.8 billion in infrastructure, planning and budgeting for the future is crucial to keep Nanaimo healthy.
So a huge part of planning ahead involves determining how much money is needed to fund the replacement of assets, and the city uses long-term planning to do that.
The city has 3 asset management funds that help with long-term infrastructure planning. One for water, one for sewer, and a general asset management fund.
So the contributions to the 3 asset management reserve funds help to smooth out the impact on property taxes and user fee increases when replacement is needed.
You know, for the last 10 or 12 years, Nanaimo's council has been really supportive in annual contributions and increasing approximately 1% of taxes every year dedicated to asset management to ensure that our funding to replace our old assets remains sustainable.
As Nanaimo is one of the fastest growing cities in BC, the demand on our infrastructure is growing right along with it. This makes long-term planning more important now than ever.
Without that contribution to asset management reserves, we wouldn't be able to ensure that the services Nanaimo continues to rely on and appreciate and enjoy would be able to be sustained.
Starting up a short-term rental in the city of Nanaimo? From marketing to pricing to your business platform, there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle. One piece that you won't want to miss is your short-term rental business license. Puzzled? We're here to help. A short-term rental is the rental of a living space for a period of less than 30 days back to back. By following the guidelines of the Short-Term Rental Operators Guidebook, short-term rental operators may qualify for a business license without hurting the long-term rental market in Nanaimo. It's also about being a great neighbor. By getting a short-term rental business license, it's like saying, hey, I promise that my guests will have a dedicated space to park in and that they won't be too noisy. This is, after all, a very respectable establishment. To learn more about the City of Nanaimo's short-term rental guidelines, or if you need a hand getting started with your business license application, connect with us. We're here to help.
Terminal Avenue is the gateway to downtown Nanaimo, and whether you're arriving from the north or the south, it's the first impression of Nanaimo's downtown. While the first impression isn't anything to celebrate yet, positive change is underway, growing from the efforts of grassroots organizations and the vision of Nanaimo's community. A better Terminal Avenue gateway is being created. In the early coal mining days, Terminal Avenue wasn't a roadway. In fact, it wasn't even land. It was a tidal inlet and regularly filled with ocean water. Throughout the coal mining days, the inlet was a depository for coal mining tailings. As time passed, the inlet vanished and new land formed. Through the 20th century, Nanaimo continued to grow, and along with it, the city's transportation needs. The corridor of new land became Terminal Avenue and a part of the Trans-Canada Highway, routing travelers through the heart of Nanaimo's downtown. Over time, more and more people came, more cars filled the streets, and we ended up with a highway-oriented Terminal Avenue that we see today. With the creation of the Nanaimo Parkway in the 1990s, a highway that bypassed the city, Terminal Avenue no longer needed to be just an auto-oriented streetscape meant to move cars quickly through the city, and new potential for the area came to light. In 2016, the Downtown Nanaimo Business Improvement Association, together with the city and the Ministry of Transportation, undertook Terminal Nickel Reimagined, a process that invited the community to help create a toolbox of ideas to improve the streetscape. Now those tools are being put to work, and that work began beneath the Bastion Street Bridge when it was given seismic upgrades. New art integrates with the bridge supports and adds a moment of color to the streetscape. Another step comes with the construction of a beautified streetscape and park spaces along Terminal Avenue between Esplanade and Commercial Street. Following that, a big stride forward will come with a new downtown transit exchange on Terminal Avenue, which will expand multimodal connectivity in the heart of downtown. And we're poised for a giant leap when Terminal Avenue streetscape upgrades are extended through downtown all the way to Stewart Avenue. Back in 2015, residents were asked to share their greatest fear for the future of Terminal Avenue. That fear? Nothing will change, and the challenge of achieving an active and attractive gateway to Nanaimo is insurmountable. Those fears were heard, and the challenge accepted. Today, we're reimagining Terminal Avenue as a walkable, green, and beautiful downtown street.
Hi, I'm Recycling.
And I'm Wish Cycling.
Wish, I have to say, I'm really loving your t-shirt.
Well, I do love recycling.
Stop it, you're gonna make me blush.
Absolutely. Wait, no, not you recycling. I heart recycling. I like you, but I love the act of recycling. I put everything in the blue cart.
I don't know if you understand the blue card completely. Have you ever heard of contamination?
Oh yeah, that's when your Brussels sprouts touch your mashed potatoes.
No, that's brumotactilophobia.
You lost me.
Recycling contamination happens when things that can't be recycled end up in your blue cart.
Oh, like Brussels sprouts.
No, I'm talking about recyclables, like packing foam or glass or soft plastics. Things that can't be sorted at the depot. If these things end up in the truck on pickup day, then it contaminates the whole load, and then the whole load is trash.
Oh, I don't heart trash.
Exactly. That's what wish cycling actually is. It's putting something in your blue cart and then just expecting that someone's there on the other end to sort it. The truth is, our sorting process doesn't allow for wish cycling.
What was that?
Sounds of the machines grinding to a halt at the recycling depot. If soft plastics get into the sorting belts, then the entire process comes to a halt.
Soft plastics can do that?
Sure can. That's why your blue card is only for packaging and paper products.
Oh, I see. PPP.
Exactly. You still love recycling?
I sure do. I heart recycling.
That's my name.
This is a City of Nanaimo storm drain. This is also a City of Nanaimo storm drain. The only thing that goes in this is rainwater. Anything other than rainwater ends up into the ocean, which ultimately affects the marine life. There's many different styles of catch basins. These are just two, but they both collect rainwater. One has a fish stamped on it. That's telling me that it's unprocessed and it goes directly to an environmentally sensitive area. This is the outfall, so anything that you put in that catch basin is ultimately going to end up into the ocean. If you have any questions about where to take your unwanted wasted products, such as paint products and petroleum products, you can contact the City of Nanaimo at 758-5222. You can also go onto our website. You can also download the Nanaimo Recycles app. Please do not throw material down the catch basins.
If the intersection at Terminal Avenue and Commercial Street is the front door to Nanaimo, then unfortunately, its front yard needs a bit of work. It's currently the site of a big empty hole. The historic block of buildings at 6 Commercial Street first began with an auto store in the early 1900s, followed by expansions that included the Heritage Gene Burns shop in 1955. For the next 62 years, the buildings anchored the corner and housed a range of businesses.
If we could cease conversations in the gallery, thank you. The next item is committee minutes, which are just for receipt. I'm asking for a motion, item 10, for adoption of consent items. they're separately addressed as well, but that's a separate matter. Yes, go ahead, Councillor Thorpe.
So as long as I have opportunity to discuss the removal of the item I had mentioned to the clerk, Your Worship, which was 10B1.
10B1 as well, okay.
Yeah. So, Your Worship, if we could get a motion for all of the consent items together, and then we'll separately discuss that item.
And we'll separately discuss that and the ones that are already noted on the agenda
That's
separately addressed. Move consent, Councillor Hemmens, seconded Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor and any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much. So we're on to, we'll do the Governance and Priorities Committee meeting first. Councillor Thorpe. Lost Lake traffic calming.
Yes, thank you. Lost Lake traffic calming. Lost Lake Road traffic calming, Your Worship. I asked this to be removed from consent, and I would like to move that this be referred to the Public Safety Committee for further consideration.
Seconded by Councillor Eastmere. Discussion on this? Councillor Thorpe?
No, I would like advice and consultation with that committee and get their thoughts on this. I'm just not comfortable with proceeding with it at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Eastmere?
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad that Councillor Thorpe made that recommendation. I think this is the proper thing to do to run it through the Public Safety Committee, and I really want to get the measures right for Lost Lake Road, and I'm hearing a little bit from residents that they didn't feel like they had a chance to properly weigh in with the surveying that the city did, and so I appreciate the chance for the Public Safety Committee to have another look at this item.
All right. Councillor Brown, then Councillor Hemmens.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'll be voting against this. I think that proper role of committees is big projects or policy items, and I think we're going to be spending a lot of effort on a very small item. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hemmens. Oops, sorry. 1 second. There we are.
Thank you, Your Worship. Happy to support. I think this is the appropriate committee for it. A question related to Councillor Eastmere's comment. Will there be further opportunity for neighbourhood engagement if this goes to the Public Safety Committee, or will it simply be that the Public Safety Committee will address it, and that will be the opportunity for neighbourhood residents to come forward?
So, Your Worship, I think if you recall from the report at the GPC last week, we had about 2/3 of the public were in favor of the project, and a third were not in favor. The survey went and to each of the residences fronting Lost Lake Road from Burma to Vandernook, approximately, essentially the affected area. But so that might be something to balance out, depending on how the Public Safety Committee views it. We may want to go back out to the public again.
I would probably not support it going back out to the public, because we've done that surveying, but I would hope that members of that, or residents of that neighborhood, if they feel like they were missed in that data, that they would come to the Public Safety Committee and voice those concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Eastmere again.
Yeah, thank you to Councillor Hemmens for raising that, and my understanding is that if it's an agenda item at the committee level, members of the public could sign up as a delegation to come and speak at the committee level at that time.
Your Worship, I would just add that there's also, as with tonight, the ability, and any council meeting, there is the ability for the public to sign up to consent items. So once the Public Safety Committee decided and made a recommendation to council, there's the opportunity at council meetings always for delegations to come here as well. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Not seeing any further speakers. Motion's on the floor. Moved by Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor and those opposed, Councillor Brown. Motion carries. Thank you very much. The next item under separately addressed is the Finance and Audit Committee meeting. The Nanaimo Legion bid to host 2028-2029 Legion National Youth Track and Field, and approval to bid to host the Creative City Summit.
And Your Worship, just a note, the reason why these are separately addressed consent items is because they are both requesting a letter of support with them. So that was missed when they came to the Finance and Audit Committee meeting. So if council would be willing to provide a letter of support for these items. That is why they're here to be addressed separately.
Councillor Brown?
I didn't mean to do that.
Moving, Councillor Hammond seconding. Any need for discussion? All those in favor? And any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. The next is the Governance Priorities Committee meeting, and Councillor Eastmere, you have a conflict because you live in the neighborhood. I don't think I'm allowed to declare what Councillor Eastmere's conflict is. She's absenting herself.
She previously declared.
Yes.
Thank you.
No, no. It's all, the motion's already on the floor by virtue of it being a consent item. All those in favor? And any opposed? Not seeing any. Motion carries. Thank you very much. We can get Councillor Eastmere back in. We have one delegation unrelated to agenda items. Mr. Hula, read data centers. Mr. Hula, you know the drill, 5 minutes. When there's a minute left, I'll let you know. If you can introduce yourself for the record, please.
Good evening, my name's Dan Hula, and the focus of this delegation is concerns regarding local data centers. I realize a cursory overview was previously presented, so this includes additional information and 3 specific suggestions to address some of the concerns. Usually they give me...
It's on its way.
Oh, that's why. If I could reclaim my time, please.
I'm just going to reset and we'll let you start again. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, it's well known that data centers use a lot of electricity and water. If the center just uses 1% of Nanaimo's water, that's about the same as over 1,000 people per day, plus 1% of all the industries and businesses. They're also notoriously energy inefficient, and they waste 30 to 50% of their power as heat. The fans and chillers put out 70 to 90 decibels of sound at source and 45 to 60 at 100 meters away. Local residents will be subjected to thousands of heavy truck trips through their neighborhood during the 2 to 3 year period of construction. All of this together will likely result in a 5 to 15% drop in their neighborhood property values. Data centers generally require high subsidies in return for few jobs. A large single-site failure like this data center can disrupt citywide services, and data centers require additional planning for potential power outages and fires. Since Nanaimo residents were never even asked if we wanted to have a data center at either the hyper-expensive proposed operational center or the larger data center at the Wellington site, it makes one wonder where this idea came from. Council has not seemed concerned to inform us citizens as to why Nanaimo should allow it or what the local benefits even are. With the minimum of research, the path inevitably leads back to the one same unelected group of foreign entities who brought us the useless economic donut model, which is also promoted by the council. In essence, local data centers often serve larger agendas, surveillance subsidies, and speculation, while communities end up footing the bill through higher costs and lost resources. Big tech companies financially benefit from data centers, and they can sure afford a lot of lobbying to make them happen. Therefore, here are 3 practical proposals to address some of the concerns. 1, publicly mandate independently publicly accessible audits, including potential emissions from diesel backups and any sediment damage. 2, require public transparency on developer plans. 3, have the company pay for any new power and water lines and maybe that traffic light to create a data center specific rate class to avoid huge power bills to us for power bill hikes to us local taxpayers. Now, data centers are also essential for modern drone operations, which I didn't know till recently, as they provide the computational infrastructure for real-time data processing. This kind of stuff includes facial recognition, swarm coordination, and beyond visual line-of-sight flights. I mean, all that stuff's great if you're a dystopian communist country, so considering the restrictions that we have, the limit our local engagement, and the variety of hardware, more than just car counters at the intersections, I think the Nanaimo citizens are actually quite concerned to have access to potential drone surveillance, which requires a data center or two to supplement the Internet of Things agenda. Now, when I first applied for this delegation, city staff informed me that delegations should not ask questions of the council. Council should not go back and forth with the delegation, and after my delegation's over and they have questions for me, that would be the appropriate process. Really, this protocol, combined with the severe limitations to question period and the complete disregard to the petition with over 8,000 names to stop the gold standard expensive operational center, makes us citizens feel like your promotional of engaging democracy rings rather hollow. So possibly you will have no questions for me because you just completely agree with everything I said, or maybe you haven't done your own research enabling you to respond, or maybe you can't tolerate any true discussion or debate on decisions you make, so you hide behind the shield of safe spaces, even though you're elected to represent us public. So council is accountable for all their actions, and just following orders from their staff or wherever isn't an excuse. And Mr. Thorpe, this company, DBA CSCOLO, operates a data center in Hong Kong, and the President's Secretary and Treasurer, Kin Kwan Andrew Pang, resides in Chai Wan, Hong Kong, and that's controlled by China. So overall, there's still a lot that I've brought up that needs to be considered when the city promotes data centers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Not seeing any questions? Thank you.
Are you kidding?
Spare us, please, please. All right. Looking at the agenda, we're going to go to item 13 now, development reports. The first is development variance permit application number DVP 489-707 Hamilton Avenue. Is there anyone here wishing to speak to development variance permit application number DVP 489-707 Hamilton Avenue? I'm not seeing anyone. Move the recommended motion, Councillor Brown. Seconded, Councillor Hemmons. All those in favor? And any opposed? None. Motion carries. The next is development permit application number DP 1359-1435 Cranberry Avenue. And we do have a delegation. We have Joan Brown representing Snuneymuxw First Nation. Selena Hiang? Is that, have I got it? Look, I'm fussy about my name. You tell me if I've mispronounced it. It's quite all right. Young? Yeah. Thank you. From Macola, project planner from Macola Development, and Maris McDonald, architect, McDonald Haggerty Architects Ltd. Ms. Brown, good evening. You know the drill. 5 minutes. I'll let you know when there's a minute left. Welcome.
H-Nate, CMNCIA, Enthapak, Wakomo, Tanisa Nasanemo, Ikonasilam Nala. Your Worship and Council are really humbled to stand before you and ever eternally grateful for creating that space for us to make a presentation when you're in such a serious and profound conversation with the community. Today we have Maris McDonald, Haggerty, who's going to present an update on our family units on Cranberry Avenue. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yep, there we go. 1435 is located across from Fire Hall number 4, between the highway and 13th there as well. Just to give you guys context of where we are. The proposed design is a particularly challenging site to work with. However, it gifted our team with a very unique building that will house 42 units of affordable housing ranging from studios to 3 bedrooms. Building is situated to make the most of Wexford Creek and its surrounding riparian boundaries. The building is slim in its design and adopts a woven pattern into its cladding system to reflect the nation's deep roots in weaving. The building will house not only the tenant space, but tenant amenity space, administrative space, We've tried to tuck 9 surface parking spaces just underneath the first level of the building. It is still surface parking. 37 stalls of bicycle parking, and the building will meet step code 4. We're seeking several variances. The first one is the fence height. We're seeking to increase the fence height along the front and flanking yards. In this zone, we're permitted 1.2 meter fence height. However, due to the grades and its kind of prominent location at the top of a hill, we'd like to increase that to up to 2.8 meters. The additional height of that fence will be porous in nature, which will kind of reflect the woven design cueing on from some of the building's architectural cues. So it'll be quite porous. Side yard setback. Side yard setbacks are 6 meters in this zone, and we're seeking to reduce them to 5 meters along the front, across from the fire hall number 4. And at the rear of the property, we're reducing it to 1.5 along 13th Street. The building height is the next variance we're seeking. Currently, we're permitted 15 meters in this zone. And we're proposing to an overall height of the building of 20.1 meters, so it's a variance of 6.1 meters. One item to note that is the building actually sits well below the road elevation, and through thorough shadow analysis, the building has little impact on the surrounding properties. The last variance that we're seeking is parking. Current zoning requires 15 stalls, and we're proposing 9 spaces. The site is very constrained in its buildable area. This particular location, though, is within the secondary urban center area, intended for a broad range of housing types and will only grow with time. This will increase the infrastructure for transit, active transportation in the surrounding area, making it easier for residents to get around the region. Also using similar buildings as a metric, the building only requires 8 stalls from what we've seen in practice. So those are the variances we've been looking for, or we're looking for on this project. And you can go in kind of more deeply into the staff report if you look at any other questions. Also along in that staff report are more images of the project itself. I'll pass it over to Joan just to close out our delegation.
Yeah, we have 1 minute left.
Once again, Worship, we're just really humbling ourselves and thanking you for your consideration and just the opportunity to continue to serve our community in a meaningful way.
Thank you very much. Someone care to make the recommend? Councillor Perino makes a recommended motion. Councillor Brown seconds. Discussion on this? Councillor Eastmere, then Councillor Perino.
Thank you. I just want to thank the applicants for their work on this. When it came through the design panel, the panel was really impressed with the building design, and I think it really spoke to the amount of work and consultation that's gone into this and how the building reflects, like the weaving design is really, really cool, and that's something that we don't get to see with a lot of projects, and it stands out and yeah, speaks to the importance of this project and how it's come to be in a really good way. And I appreciate the items that the design panel recommended regarding revising the fence design to be semi-transparent along the site frontage, or the street frontage, pardon me, and incorporating a window design that will make it a little bit quieter for residents. So thank you for making those changes, and excited to see this project come forward and create some really important housing for families in our community.
Thank you very much. Councillor Perino, then Councillor Hemmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I just want to say, I think the best part of this project is the fact that there are 6 studio, 14 one-bedroom, 11 two-bedroom, and 11 three-bedroom for families. That's what they need. So I'm just thrilled to see this come forward. Get the shovel in the ground. Get the shovel in the ground. It's great. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll second the motion on the three-bedroom units. Councillor Hemmons.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Much needed housing in our community. Happy to support the variances. Noting a slight concern with the parking variance. If this building is designed for working families often have a car. So aware of that, aware of where it sits in the city and that there isn't a lot of off-street parking. I pass 702 Nickel every day. We did parking variances on that building, and that neighborhood is really struggling with parking. So just noting that, and a question probably to staff, will this be restricted to Indigenous families, or is this for families broadly in the community?
I think it's my understanding it's intended, through your worship to Councillor Hammond's question, that it's intended for use by Indigenous families.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Manley?
Thank you. Yeah, happy to support. I too have some concerns about the parking variance, but it's a much needed project and looking forward to seeing it built. And it's a lovely design, so good luck getting it up as quick as possible. Thanks.
Very good. All those in favor? And any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you for your patience tonight. Welcome to Council's Monday Night World. Back to administrative reports. 12A, miscellaneous bylaw repeal bylaw. It's a tongue twister. Ms. Gurry, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. This report in front of you and bylaw is a housekeeping bylaw that would repeal an outdated development cost charge installment payments bylaw, and also seek a council motion to abandon 2 zoning bylaws that are no longer valid.
Thank you. Councillor Brown, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move that miscellaneous bylaw repeal bylaw 2025 number 7434, a bylaw to repeal City of Nanaimo development cost charges installment payments bylaw 1991 and number 3942 pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None.
Your Worship, I would move that miscellaneous bylaw repeal bylaw 2025 number 7434 pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmons. For discussion, all those in favor? Any opposed? None.
And I would move that miscellaneous bylaw repeal bylaw 2025 number 7434 pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None.
And that zoning amendment bylaw 2023 number 4500.207, a bylaw to rezone 488 and 492 5th Street from single family residential R1 to residential corridor CR1 be abandoned.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
And that zoning amendment bylaw 2023 number 4500.217, a bylaw to rezone 2265 Ashley Road from single dwelling residential R1A to duplex residential R4 be abandoned.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmons. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. On to 13B, amendment to rates and charges for water 2026. Ms. Mercer, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So per the budget discussions effective January 1st, 2026, water fees are proposed to increase by 5% or $26 per single family home based on seasonal usage. This will bring the annual cost for a single family home to approximately $558 for the year. 2% of this increase is required to fund the long-term asset management plans for the city's water system, and the remaining 3% will fund the annual operating increase. And this is in line with the recommendations out of the user rate review that was done in 2022. There were a couple of other additions or for clarification. Properties equipped with a detector check for sprinkler requirements will now be subject to a meter-based fee as the city assumes responsibility for ongoing maintenance and eventual repair of the detector check meter. So happy to answer any questions on this.
Not seeing any questions. Councillor Brown, please.
Your Worship, I would move that Waterworks Rate and Regulation Amendment Bylaw 2025 number 7004.23, a bylaw to set the water rates for 2026 pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
I would move that Waterworks Rate and Regulation Amendment Bylaw 2025 number 7004.23 pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmons. Not seeing any discussion. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
And I'd move that Waterworks Rate and Regulation Amendment Bylaw 2025, number 7004.23, pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. We're on to C, 2026 Amendment to Rates and Charges for Sanitary Sewer. Ms. Mercer, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So effective January 1st, 2026, sewer fees are proposed to increase by 4% or $6.86 per single-family home, and this will bring the annual cost for a single-family home to approximately $178.37. 2% of this increase is required to fund long-term asset management planning for the city's sanitary sewer systems, and the remaining 2% will fund the annual operating increase. In addition, staff are recommending some amendments to ensure compliance with the city's current standards and expectations. And these additions relate to illegal connections and connections or reconnections to a service connection. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Not seeing any questions. Councillor Brown.
Your Worship, I would move that Sewer Regulation and Charge Amendment Bylaw 2025, number 2496.39, a bylaw to set the 2026 rates for sanitary sewer, pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
And I would move that Sewer Regulation and Charge Amendment Bylaw 2025, number 2496.39, pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
And I would move Sewer Regulation and Charge Amendment Bylaw 2025, number 2496.39, pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Manley. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. On to D, 2026 Amendment to Rates and Charges for Municipal Solid Waste Collection. Ms. Mercer again, please.
Thank you. So municipal solid waste collection fees are proposed to increase by 5% in 2026, and this will bring the annual cost to $253, up from $241 in 2025, marking a $12 increase. And there were also a couple of housekeeping changes that were made. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I do want to remind the audience that Council's read all this material, so we're not just sliding through without noticing what's going on. Councillor Brown, please.
Thank you, Worship. I would move that Municipal Solid Waste Collection Amendment Bylaw 2025, number 7128.17, a bylaw to set the solid waste collection rates for 2026, pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
Worship, I would move that Municipal Solid Waste Collection Amendment Bylaw 2025, number 7128.17, pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Manley. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
And I would move Municipal Solid Waste Collection Amendment Bylaw 2025, number 7128.17, pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmons. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. On to item E, 2026 Amendment to User Fee Subsidies. Again, Ms. Mercer, please.
Thank you. So under the Municipalities Enabling and Validating Act, the city has the ability to waive a part of water and sewer rates to properties owned and occupied by any class of citizens 65 years of age or older. So based on the Statistics Canada low income cutoff limits, low incomes are recommended to be for a single owner, $28,146 annual, and for a couple owner is $35,037 in annual income. So happy to answer any questions you have.
Not seeing any. Councillor Brown.
I would move User Fee Subsidy Amendment Bylaw 2025, number 7095.07, a bylaw to set the 2026 threshold for user fee subsidies, pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
I would move User Fee Subsidy Amendment Bylaw 2025, number 7095.07, pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
And I would move User Fee Subsidy Amendment Bylaw 2025, number 7096.07, pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmons. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. And F, Amendment to Bulk Water Rates for Southwest Extension 2026. Again, Ms. Mercer, please.
Thank you. This is my last one, so you're done with me for the night. In 2004, the water supply service established under the Greater Nanaimo Water District Act was transferred to the City of Nanaimo, making the city responsible for the provision of water to the Southwest Extension Waterworks District. And under legislation, the city's fees for this cannot exceed the cost of providing the services. So based on the 5-year average annual water consumption volume, a rate of $3.75 per 1,000 gallons is being proposed effective January 1st, 2026. Happy to answer any questions on that.
Not seeing any. Councillor Brown?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would move that the Southwest Bulk Water Rate Amendment Bylaw 2025, number 7099.14, a bylaw to set the 2026 bulk water rate for Southwest Extension, pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
Your Worship, I would move that the Southwest Bulk Water Rate Amendment Bylaw 2025, number 7099.14, pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
And finally, Your Worship, I would move that the Southwest Bulk Water Rate Amendment Bylaw 2025, number 7099.14, pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmons. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. The next item under this section, the last one, is G, Professional Reliance Act Bill M216. Mr. Holm, you're going to provide us with an overview, please.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, this is just an information report for council related to a bill that was a private member's bill that was introduced on October 21st. The bill is M216, and it's been titled the Professional Reliance Act. And this bill was given second reading and by the legislature on November 17th. And is now being reviewed by a select standing committee with opportunity for input on the proposed bill. My understanding is the report says the input period was set to expire on December 2nd. It's now been extended to January 6th. So the standing committee is taking input on the proposed bill till January 6th at 3 o'clock now. A number of organizations have been scrambling to meet the December 2nd deadline, provide input on the proposed bill. It's definitely an area of evolving understanding as it came through a private members process, so there wasn't consultation with necessarily with impacted parties ahead of the introduction. The bill states that it's intended to provide for streamlining of development projects and reduction of administrative costs in the approval of development projects by local governments, among other benefits that it states to have. Some of the key elements of the bill are mandatory acceptance by local governments of certified submissions from professionals that are regulated under the Professional Governance Act, and those would include, at this time, those would include agrologists, biologists, applied science technologists and technicians, foresters, architects, engineers, and geoscientists. With limited exception, and unless a complaint is filed with the Office of the Superintendent of Professional Governance, local governments would have to accept reports by those professionals as complying with bylaw and building code. So there are a number of concerns that have been raised. Again, this is an area of evolving understanding. There's definitely limited understanding. There's actually, we've included a summary from Union of British Columbia Municipalities, Lidstone and Company, a prominent local government law firm, and the Planning Institute of British Columbia as well. The Union of British Columbia Municipalities has actually provided an updated assessment as of November 28th, so I'm not sure if that came through to council through correspondence from UBCM, but we can definitely share that. So UBCM has updated their submission and summary of potential concerns with the bill. This report just provides a high-level overview the potential concerns that were identified by those three bodies, so UBCM, Lidstone and Company, and Planning Institute of BC. There are a number of other organizations that have also provided statements, comments on the proposed bill, but we've just highlighted concerns expressed by these three. I can go over them or answer questions if you have any. Other than that, it's just for information. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Brown?
Thanks, Your Worship. I just want to thank staff for this, and if appropriate, I would like to move and recommend or make a motion.
All right. We do have MLA Anderson's letter later in letter correspondence. Would you
Sure.
move your motion?
Wherever
now?
you would like it, yeah. It just references this report, but I can happily do it later.
Yeah, I think that might be better. All right. Thank you, Mr. Holm. Much appreciated. We are on to bylaws. We have none. Correspondence, and the first is correspondence dated 2025 November 14th from MLA George A.G. Anderson, Nanaimo Landsville Re-Professional Alliance Act. Councillor Brown, please, now.
Your Worship, I would like to move that correspondence be sent to the appropriate provincial government bodies outlining the seven concerns identified in the staff report, Professional Reliance Act Bill M216.
And there's a seconder, Councillor Hemmons. Discussion on this? Councillor Hemmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. Happy to support. A curious question through to Councillor Brown. I understand you had a direct request of MLA Anderson regarding this bill. Did you receive a response?
Through you, Your Worship, no, but I do know he's probably very busy and receiving quite a bit of correspondence on this matter, so.
Thank you. I'm happy to support, and I hope that the MLA really takes local government feedback into consideration and any further moves on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion on this? All those in favor of the motion? And those opposed? None. Motion carries. We have a letter, correspondence from Brian Say, nurse practitioner, request for letter of support, read nurse practitioner, most responsible provider, pilot in Nanaimo.
And Your Worship, there is a letter of support request, so a motion, if council wishes to provide those letters, would be required individually for B and C.
So moved on B.
Second.
Seconded, moved Councillor Manley, seconded Councillor Hemmons. Any discussion? All those in favor? And any opposed? None. Motion carries. And on C, Pacifica Housing Advisory Association request for letter of support, read BC Housing RFP for rental housing site development and operation in Nanaimo, BC. Seconded, moved Councillor Manley, seconded Councillor Eastmere. Discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. We have two notices of motion for the next council meeting. Councillor Brown, your notice of motion council policy housekeeping. And Councillor Armstrong, your notice of motion read dry supportive housing. And under other business, the first item is A, Councillor Thorpe, motion request to provincial government amendment to current drug decriminalization policy. Councillor Thorpe.
Motion first, or do we
I
hear delegations?
think you, Ms. Gurry, make the motion first and then hear the delegation?
No, Your Worship, Councillor Thorpe's right. He wanted to just introduce that he would be making the motion after hearing from the delegation.
Okay.
Normally, that's how it would work.
So we'll hear from the delegations first. The first is Sarah Lovegrove, Vice President, Harm Reduction Nurses Association. Ms. Lovegrove, welcome. I think you know the drill. You'll have 5 minutes, and when there's a minute left, I'll let you know. Please.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Lovegrove. I'm a registered nurse, nursing professor at BIU, and the vice president of the Harm Reduction Nurses Association. This coming April will mark the 10-year anniversary of this public health emergency. Nanaimo has lost over 590 people since 2016. I first addressed the last iteration of this council at year 3. And since that time, I've lost over 24 friends and colleagues to the unregulated toxic drug supply. That's 3 times the size of this council. And what's most heartbreaking here is that this isn't even a fraction of the grief being held by the people with lived and living experience in our community right now. At first, I played your game, coffee meetings, working with your staff, sharing expert knowledge, but that was back when I was naive enough to believe that elected officials would respond to this crisis with compassionate urgency to keep people in our community alive. But to quote Audre Lorde, the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house, as the location of one's own humanity and empathy cannot be taught, and oppressive systems cannot be changed by working with. So today I choose to use my time instead to share the peer-reviewed scientific evidence that fundamentally invalidates the entire basis of this motion. And as a scientist, I'm happy to share my sources with council via email, provided I haven't been blocked again. First, let me clarify that harm reduction is a scientific, evidence-based healthcare intervention, not a priority or not a philosophy or an ideology. Decades of high-quality scientific studies demonstrate reductions in death, fewer costly to treat infections, and decreased strain on our healthcare system through harm reduction services. Supervised consumption sites are an evidence-informed response to this emergency, not the cause of it. Toxic drug deaths occur when people use alone. And to echo the most recent data shared by Island Health, supervised consumption services have reversed thousands upon thousands of overdoses. Each time an overdose is reversed, a life is saved. And it could easily be someone you know. This crisis kills people across every community and every socioeconomic line, making prevention a collective responsibility. Safe consumption sites do not enable drug use. They provide healthcare access. Criminals are already selling drugs, and people are already using them. Safe consumption sites prevent death and connect people to primary care, mental health care, detox services, housing, and treatment. Research also consistently shows that neighborhoods actually benefit from supervised consumption through reduced public drug use, fewer syringes in public spaces, and lower toxic drug exposure event density around safe consumption sites. Peer-reviewed Canadian studies show supervised consumption services do not increase crime, no matter what your personal opinion is, and instead reduces public disorders such as syringe litter and public injecting. Therefore, blaming supervised consumption sites for crime is a purposefully misleading strategy to distract from the broader systemic issues like poverty and affordable housing that are eroding our community. Additionally, the BC NDP have already made fundamental shifts to their priorities around this toxic drug crisis, actively engaging in tactics to reverse the decriminalization pilot project, including their failed Bill 34, rendering the very ask within this motion redundant. In its injunction ruling, BC Supreme Court Chief Justice Hinkson stated that severely restricting public drug consumption would cause irreparable harm to people at risk of injury and death amidst a public health crisis. Politicized arguments like this motion, driven by NIMBYism and colonial privilege, undermine science, threaten public health, and jeopardize the health and safety of our entire community. Finally, this is not an addiction crisis. Public health experts have clearly identified the primary driver of this crisis to be a toxic, unregulated drug supply. And when I teach my students about this crisis, we recognize that the secondary cause of these premature deaths is most often stigma. Not everyone who dies is experiencing addiction, and your failure to call this crisis what it is inherently erases the experiences and lives of those thousands lost. Every time politicians like you engage in politicized misinformation and stigmatizing language, not only do you contribute to the worsening of collective ignorance and cumulative death, you force those left behind to grieve in shame and isolation. So my call to action today is that you vote down this dangerously misinformed motion and begin to finally prioritize decisions and actions that keep our community alive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions for the delegation? Not seeing any, thank you. The next delegation is Beverly Plains. Ms. Plains, if you can introduce yourself for the record. You'll have 5 minutes. When there's a minute left, I'll let you know.
Hi.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to meet you all. I'm Beverly Plains, Mayor Crow, councillors. We are on the unceded territory of the Sunema First Nation, and I have lived here as an uninvited guest since I was taken by MCFD from my Stuk First Nation family at 7 years old. When we talk about who is allowed to live and who is treated as expendable, I am someone that the system has wrote off. My name is Beverly Plains. I'm a mother of 4. I'm a survivor of the millennial scoop and a person with lived experience in substance use. I'm a former board director and executive secretary for the Nanaimo Network of Drug Users Society, aka NANDU, and a former OPS peer support worker, and a recent graduate of the Indigenous Health Administration and Leadership program at UBC. I'm currently a peer research associate with the Canadian Institute for Substance Use Research. I'm here because this motion is not about re-examining philosophy. It's about how many funerals we are prepared to accept. Sorry, I'm nervous. Toxic drugs are now the leading cause of death for people aged 10 to 59 in this province. Since a public health emergency was declared in 2016, 18,699 people in British Columbia have died from unregulated supply. That includes 624, I think she said, of our neighbors here in Greater Nanaimo. With numbers like that, we do not get to point our fingers at the overdose prevention site. Since opening the OPS at 250 Albert, they have had over 113,000 visits. Between July 2024 and July 2025, staff reversed almost 2,000 overdoses. If even a fraction of those reversals had been deaths, our numbers, already roughly double the provincial rate and among the worst in BC, would be beyond anything the city could manage. Calling that enabling drug use only makes sense if we were willing to say out loud that keeping people alive is the problem. When you talk about bad endings, they're already here. People are dying alone because stigma and fear already push them away from the one place downtown where someone can actually intervene when they stop breathing. Closing or undermining the OPS will not send people to treatment. It sends them back into isolation where no one is there to stop them from dying of something we have the power to prevent. We also know what happens when Nanaimo turns its back on peer-led harm reduction. When NANDU opened their unsanctioned Nickel Street site, deaths in our community dropped noticeably. That wasn't chaos, that was survival. But Nanaimo allowed stigma and moral panic to win. The site was shut down as a nuisance after the homeowners were threatened with civil forfeiture. The people who relied on it did not just disappear. They were pushed out of sight and preventable deaths came roaring back. We have already tested what happens when we close the doors on people who use drugs. It creates a false sense of order. It sends the problem into places that are easier to ignore. Every overdose reversed inside the OPS is one less emergency call, one less crew doing CPR in a stairwell, and one less body in a bag. If you remove that, you are not protecting anybody. You are redistributing harm and asking fire, ambulance, and families in Nanaimo to carry the body count. You do not control the toxic drug supply, but you do control how you respond and the signal you send to the community. Tonight I'm asking for three things. First, reject Councillor Thorpe's motion and any claim that frames evidence-based harm reduction as enabling or a failure. Do not send a letter that blames the only service in the city that directly reduces our death toll. Second, formally affirm the OPS at 250 Albert and other evidence-based harm reduction services as essential health and safety infrastructure in Nanaimo's overdose response and community safety plans. Third, direct staff to work in genuine partnership with people with lived and living experience to build a peer-led community safety team that can respond to neighborhood and city staff concerns in ways that reduce reliance on police and strengthen safety for every member of our community. I want you to ask yourselves the following questions. Have you ever witnessed someone overdosing? Have you ever watched someone you love turn blue? Have you ever done compressions until your arms gave out and it wasn't enough? Have you ever prayed to a God you didn't believe in to take you instead? Have you ever lost so many people that you can no longer bear to count? Well, I have. And I'm standing here with you today because somebody kept me alive long enough to fight my way back, to bring my kids home, to get a higher education, to do this work. You cannot treat dead people. You cannot house dead people. You cannot reunite dead parents with their kids. Tonight, you are not just asking people to rethink their philosophy, you are deciding whether the city will stand with its most vulnerable residents long enough for them to have a chance to stay alive and come back home. If you want less visible drug use and fewer preventable deaths, lean into the overdose response system and evidence-based peer-led solutions. Do not walk away from it. Thank you.
Wrap up. Thank you very much. Any questions for the delegation?
Ken?
I do have a question.
Yep.
People refer to various studies, et cetera, and we know that our CSOs and others in the community have brought many back with naloxone. And you can argue that every time that happens, that's a preventable death. but have there been any studies that looked at the long-term impact? In other words, people who end up deceased because of a toxic drug that they took, etc. Have they been, in fact, saved previously, and if so, how many times? And is there any discussion around that or studies? The reason I'm asking quite simply is the general public, I think it's fair to say, doesn't regard these programs as a success. All right, and I'm talking about the general public. I'm not talking about myself or any member of council, please, but I want you to understand what I'm trying to say. Are there studies that indicate that it's worthwhile? And the reason I say that is because it contrasts with a lack of detox beds, particularly for young people who are starting down that long, sad road that ends in the deaths that you've talked about.
I'm not sure, but I would like to point out one thing that's kind of unsaid in the midst of this toxic drug crisis, is that addiction is technically a disability. And so what we are doing is we are putting our most vulnerable members of society and telling them that they're expendable. I just would like to point that out.
Do you support the concept of, well, what I've been told by my friend Mayor Diaz in Kelowna is compulsory compassionate care? And I'm not talking about people with, I won't call it, I hate to say it, but a simple drug issue. Because I think it's fair to say that, and I'm not exaggerating, a substantial portion of the people with a serious drug issue also have a mental health issue, and very sadly, as a result of the toxic drug supply being brought back in naloxone, a significant level of brain injury now. Do you support compassionate compulsory care, or what I call secure and voluntary care for those folks?
I think that's a very narrow solution for the wide range of people that we have out there. I think that for a certain group of people, there definitely is, that is definitely the solution for them. I've known a few personally that definitely need involuntary care. But I think that people need to come to that decision on their own, and with the complexity of the addiction to being addicted to fentanyl and benzos and all the really, really strong analogs that we have coming out now, it's really hard for them to make that decision. So I don't believe in involuntary care. I think people need to get to that point where they can make that decision. But it doesn't take too much. It just takes a little bit of compassion and understanding. And the way that things are now, it's very stigmatized. It's not okay to be a drug user. So in order for us to get to that spot, I think we need to be at a space of honesty between people who use drugs and the people that are there to support them. And peer-led leadership.
Councillor Eastmere.
Thank you. Thank you for your delegation and for sharing your lived experience. It's really brave for you to share that in council today. So yeah, really appreciate the information and the truths that you shared. Thank you.
That is?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Thorpe.
Good. Thank you, Your Worship. All right. I would like to move, as I've indicated, the following. That Council send a letter to the provincial government asking it to re-examine its philosophy regarding the ongoing drug addiction crisis and resulting mental health and street disorder issues, stating that the current policy of decriminalization and enabling drug use at consumption sites is failing to provide effective long-term solutions for either those with addictions or for neighborhoods impacted by the problem. Sorry, it's a bit wordy.
Is there a seconder? Second, Councillor Perino. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you,
please.
Your Worship, if I may. First of all, thank you to the delegations. I appreciate your coming and expressing your viewpoint. And I think I don't agree with some of the statements that you made, but we're not here to argue with delegations. I do think we can agree that drug addiction is bad. And I think, oh, you're shaking your head no. Okay, well, I guess we don't agree on that. I think it's bad, and I wish the government would focus more on prevention and education and treatment rather than simply continuing to accept drug addiction as a norm and enabling, and I do see it as enabling. So First, if I may, Your Worship, I want to explain, I withdrew my original motion regarding closure of the supervised consumption site because on reflection, I felt that it was being misunderstood and that my intent was unclear. So I'll try to keep this clear. This is not directly about the consumption site. To me, that is just a symbol of the government policy, which after, I believe, 12 years now of the opioid crisis, needs to be re-examined. The root of the problem, in my mind, is substance abuse and drug addiction causing mental illness and resulting social disorder, and I think it does. This is a headline I have that says, "City leaders, police say BC drug policy is failing as street disorder worsens." I agree with that statement. The policy, I think, is failing, and that policy included a 3-year pilot project on drug decriminalization and a focus on supervised consumption sites. I acknowledge that there is some attempt at treatment and recovery in the government policy, but there is very little, and it's moving at a snail's pace. Mainly, we are currently just assisting users to continue addiction and continue their lives of resulting misery on our streets. This is not a long-term solution to the opioid crisis. So in my opinion, Your Worship, and what I would like us through a letter to point out to the government is please consider a different approach. Put money and effort into priorities of education and treatment facilities, more detox, dry recovery spaces, speed up compassionate compulsory care for those that can't look after themselves. And a number of politicians, including several from our council, heard Julian Daly, recently CEO of Victoria's Our Place Society, when he presented at UBCM and said, "We need a health-first policy, which means addressing addiction and mental illness. Decriminalization was well-intended, but ended up feeding the problem. It lessens protection for the most vulnerable." So I am asking council's support to send a letter simply asking the government to re-examine how are they dealing with this addiction crisis. Consider, please, taking a different approach, because what we're doing now is not working and it's not beneficial in the long term to either those with addictions or the neighborhoods affected by the problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kesselbrock.
Thanks. I can't support this motion. I think the reasoning's flawed. I still think, regardless of not asking for the immediate dismantling, it's throwing the overdose prevention site unnecessarily under the bus. The motion asserts overdose prevention sites are failing to provide effective long-term solutions for those with addictions or for neighborhoods. But the overdose prevention sites were never designed to be long-term addiction treatment solutions, and their purpose is simple and urgent: to prevent death. I agree that we're not doing enough to reduce addiction, expand treatment, or improve neighborhood safety, and those are fair grounds for holding the province accountable, and I support that. But blaming overdose prevention sites for the province's failure to invest adequately in treatment, recovery, and community safety mixes up the causes. People will continue to use the drugs with or without the overdose prevention site. Without these sites, they'll be used and the drugs will be used in more dangerous environments, without medical care, and in ways that create greater risks for both users and the community. If we want better long-term outcomes, then the answer is to expand access to medical treatment, mental health supports, housing, and prevention, and not to dismantle the last resort interventions whose only job is to keep people alive long enough to benefit from those services. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Prino.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I just want to call your attention to the line that talks about failing to provide effective long-term solutions for either those with addictions or for neighborhoods impacted by the problem. I want to thank Ms. Lovegrove and Ms. Plains for speaking. One of the concerns that I have, Ms. Plains, was that you talked about, you know, they just need a little more compassion, and I understand where you're coming from that statement. However, for those of us, and I have lost a family member, so this hits very close to home, I can tell you. This is not a disgrace, this is a disease. Drug addiction is a disease. It is not a disgrace, and consumption sites do keep people alive. I agree with you. My struggle is that sending people back out to the cold to the wet, without shelter, without food, without any way of trying to, any ability to recover is simply wrong and inhumane. And if you go to City Hall and sit there for a few hours, you will see people that are, these are our sons, our daughters, our parents, our sisters, brothers. I mean, this is absolutely horrible what we're doing to people. And having buried someone in my own family, I can tell you that this is just wrong. So while this motion isn't perfect, the very fact that we would write to the province to say you need to do more because we are failing to provide effective long-term solutions for those with addictions is enough for me to vote in favor of it. Until the government provides care for those who need, this is not to be stigmatized. This is not a disgrace. It's a disease, and we need to treat it that way. And that's what we're asking for. Thank you.
Thank you. In order, Councillors Brown, Manley, and Eastmere.
Thanks, Your Worship. I will not be supporting this. Listening to Councillor Thorpe speak, you know, there was things in there I absolutely agreed with, and I think I probably found more in there that I agreed with than what I actually literally read in the motion. But I am voting on the motion. I think Councillor Gesselbrock highlighted, you know, what supervised consumption sites are supposed to be, what their purposes are, and it is one very small thing in what's supposed to be a continuum of care. And I think the big target for me is like all the other absent pieces in that continuum care that don't exist. And so in your introductory remarks, Councillor Thorpe, I heard lots of those components about those missing pieces, and I would absolutely support letters that are speaking to those gaps. But when it comes to this, you know, just I'll be very quick. 1 week of my experience in downtown Nanaimo was at the Port Theatre for an event, outside, a whole bunch of drug paraphernalia, which was fires, everything like that, clearly an unsupervised consumption site. The McDonald's on Nickel Street, go into the washroom there, and it's overflowing, the needle box. It's unbelievable. I feel very sorry for the people that have to clean that facility. That's clearly an unsupervised consumption site. I had one more example, but it's now escaped me, but it doesn't matter. I think you understand my point is that there's tons of unsupervised consumption sites, and simply singling out the supervised consumption site, I don't think will do anything to combat the greater problem. And I think the concerns of folks, both those that you know, are tired of this issue on the streets, but also those that are tired of losing loved ones and seeing the visible marks of the tragedy. So I can't support this because I simply think it's identifying the wrong items, and I hope this is defeated, but I would happily support lots of the gaps that exist if that's what we were writing. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Manley.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you to Ms. Lovegrove and Ms. Plains for your presentation, and for Ms. Plains for really sharing your story. It's really important for people to hear that there is another side. There's another side through the window. And I went to Guy Falicello's presentations before too, and he tells a very powerful story about addiction and living on the street and getting through the other side. Not everybody that's using these consumption sites is homeless. There are people that are going there to consume that have homes, that do hang around on our streets. I agree with Councillor Brown and Councillor Gesselbrock. Without safe consumption sites, people are using in unsafe sites. Consumption sites are part of a 4-pillar approach. It's harm reduction, it's to keep people alive. And I too have a family member that I lost to this crisis, and I've had friends that have died as well. And I have people on the street that I know that I've known for decades, that I see, who have kids, who had, you know, jobs and family lives, and now that's all been undone. But the last thing I want is for them to die of a toxic drug overdose, the way my cousin did. And we need, Larry Campbell talked about a four-pillar approach decades ago, and I think right now we're standing on a pogo stick, where we focused on harm reduction, but the other parts of that four-pillar approach are education, treatment, and enforcement. We need to be dealing with the people that are putting this toxic drug supply on the street. And if I too, you know, hear what you're saying, Councillor Thorpe. I agree with many things that you're saying, but at the same time, the focus of the motion doesn't spell that out. And so what we really need to be doing is compelling the government to go back to that four-pillar approach. This is a health crisis. We need a housing-first approach for people who are facing homelessness and addiction. We need mental health services as part of our Canada Health Act, that our Canada Health Accord should have mental health services free for anybody that needs mental health services. We're failing in so many ways. You know, compulsory compassionate care, we don't have voluntary care available for those that need it when they need it. And that is a failure. That's a failure of our healthcare system. It's a failure of our policies. And I've seen it all too often when people are reaching out for help, that it's the wait lists are too long. It's not there when they're ready to make the turn in their lives. So I can't support this as worded. Yeah, I would consider some other kind of messaging to the provincial government about how we do better around this crisis, because they need to do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Eastmere, then Councillor Hemmons.
Thank you. A lot's been said already that I agree with by Councillors Gesselbrecht and Manley, and the delegations, I think, shared some really important truths with us today. As far as the importance of these safe consumption sites, like I don't need studies to tell me that these harm reduction interventions are important. Like I can look around and see people who would not be here with us today if these services didn't exist. And that's all the proof that I need. And I can also pull a random headline as evidence. Harm reduction in housing facilities and public places can save lives, experts say. And as far as, you know, the need to provide additional health care and supports, yes, absolutely, Councillor Perino, I agree that we do need to do that, but that's not what this motion says at all. So I just can't support this today, and I really appreciate the people on the front lines doing the really important harm reduction work. And I'll just say I also stopped by AVI Nanaimo's 30th anniversary celebration today. A huge credit to the work that they've been doing in our community. And I really raise my hands to people who are keeping people alive in the face of the toxic drug crisis that we are continuing to be in.
Thank you. Councillor Hemmons.
Thank you, Worship. A lot of, I think, what I would have said has been said. I don't want to prolong it. I'm not going to support. I think I understand the frustration with which this motion comes forward in, but I don't think it's quite hitting the mark of what this council wants to communicate to the provincial government about their policies. I do want to note, I can't leave this conversation without noting that these services, despite research that neighborhoods actually benefit from supervised consumption services, that has not been the experience of the South End. And I just want to read something. This is from the South End Community Association. So this is the Alliance of Residents who are saying, the implementation of services such as this, if they don't include a realistic assessment of the capacity of the neighborhood in which a service or housing is operated to successfully integrate that activity, the resulting negative impact on the neighborhood is all too predictable, costly, stressful, and under-mitigated. There are important truths on the other side of this conversation, and those truths belong to children in the neighborhood, those truths belong to seniors and elderly in the neighborhood. And so I fully support what happens in the supervised consumption site because, as Councillor Eastmere said, lives are being saved, and that is critical. However, if we don't take in the context of the surrounding neighborhood and what happens when people leave those services, we're not actually looking at the full picture, and I think it's actually a bit naive. So, yeah, I'm not going to support, but not because I believe that the policy is a great one, but just it's just not mine to weigh into. Thank you.
Thank you. I am going to support Councillor Thorpe's motion, and for one central reason. This is a cry from a community that has seen incredible levels of misery and death and sadness. And to some extent, it has been the policy results of well-meaning people who have suggested that somehow if you decriminalize the use of all drugs that may be dangerous and addictive, that somehow we'll all be safer. Or that if we just go after the drug dealers and eliminate the supply, we'll all be safer. All of the various solutions, if we just provide safe supply, the community will be safer. You'll prevent this. Several hundred years ago, if you committed suicide, that was the ultimate sin against God, and you wouldn't be buried in consecrated ground. Now, I'm not with that philosophy. But the end result of very well-meaning, dedicated, passionate people around this issue has resulted in what I see as an appalling approach by many people who, in my view, should know better, who somehow think that the agency we're all supposed to enjoy allows you, and we know that this happens, we know that people who work for us as firefighters have seen it, you overdose 2 or 3 times in a day, you get saved by somebody so that you can do it again another day, and we will ensure that you are left in the streets, we will ensure that you do not face compulsory care or supervision or treatment so that you can eventually die in the streets. And that is what has happened. We have stepped back from this. I am with Julian Daly on this. This is a serious health matter. It has resulted in a significant level, as I indicated earlier, around not just addiction, but mental health, which is often the precursor to the addiction, then followed with significant brain injury. I am not prepared to continue to keep asking as an individual, as a mayor, over and over again. This isn't perfect wording, might not suit me entirely, but sometimes when you just want somebody's attention, you have to get their attention. So I'm going to support this motion because what we have done, in my view, is not only inhuman, it is not in keeping with the values of any civilized society to allow someone the agency to continue to take substances that will kill them, that we know a supply we're never going to control or fix is going to continue to kill them, and pretend somehow that services at one end where we are seeing people in the last stages of their life, and we have seen those individuals in the streets, and some of them know, we know who they are, the staff at City Hall know who they are. I'm not prepared to allow that to become a norm. When it is a norm that thousands of your citizens live in the streets in the conditions they do, not getting any effective treatment, Ms. Lovegrove and Ms. Plains are right. You know what? It does save lives, but saving those lives for what purpose is what I'm really asking. If there is no treatment available, if we are not putting money at the other end, if we are not providing housing and supports, and if we are not prepared as a society to stop pussyfooting around and put people in secure and voluntary care in far greater numbers than have been suggested. The vote in the last election indicated where British Columbians stand in this, in my respectful opinion. It's why the government doesn't have a majority. I've said it over and over again. That's my entitlement to express my opinion. I will support Councillor Thorpe's motion. It may not be perfect, But it's time the folks in Victoria started to wake up to the reality of what is happening in our streets before more people die, particularly when we know that according to statistics, and there's always statistics, that the majority of people who die from the toxic drug supply are doing it in their own homes in any event. They're not going down to the overdose prevention site. A small percentage of people who use drugs, we're not allowed to use terms like addicts anymore because that would be stigmatizing. People who use drugs are dying in their homes. Sorry, but it's time we started to take what I will call the most compassionate of approaches and do some things that may be unappealing to a certain segment of the community who remain advocates as if somehow using drugs that will eventually kill you that are addictive is a norm. I'm sorry, it's not a norm, and it's not going to be a norm for very long because something awful will happen. You will see politicians elected who will be far more adverse on this issue than what we presently have. Councillor Thorpe. Councillor Eastmere, have your word and then let Councillor Thorpe finish the debate.
The stigma expressed tonight around drug use, I just find appalling. We enable people to use alcohol constantly. It has serious health effects and also kills people, and yet we have all kinds of supervised consumption sites for alcohol called bars. And so the continued stigma around drug use is what is killing people. I find it appalling, the statement around we're allowing people to use drugs and we're bringing them back with naloxone. To what end? To what end? To save their lives. And those people deserve treatment, and they deserve to be able to have access to the supports and services we need, not just harm reduction, but also access to timely treatment and housing. Housing is healthcare, and I think that is a big thing that all of this discussion is coming down to, and it's just not reflected in this motion. And so I look forward to voting this down tonight and letting the experts proceed with improving the healthcare and the housing access that we desperately need.
All right, sorry. Councillor Thorpe. Let's finish this. We have
Oh, yeah, sorry, Your Worship, but I do appreciate the comments of council, whether I agree with them or not, and thank you for allowing the discussion. I think it's an important one. I am not asking in this motion for the government to close down the supervised consumption site, and we seem to keep coming back to that. I'm simply asking that we write a letter requesting that the government look at its priorities in how it's dealing with this opioid crisis. And Councillor Manley referenced failure of policies, and I thought he was actually arguing my case for me. And you referenced, Councillor Manley, the 4 pillars. And what are those pillars? Well, 3 of them are education and treatment and enforcement. And I will argue that right now, our provincial policy does not accommodate any of those 3 pillars. Education, do you know, there was a recent bill proposed in the legislature just a couple of weeks ago that suggested a drug use prevention curriculum in BC schools. And with help from another party, the government defeated that bill. To me, that's madness. Long-term solutions require education. They require treatment. Let's put the emphasis on treatment. Getting people healthy. Health first. That should be the answer. And enforcement, yes, let's allow the police to go after the drug dealers more easily that are preying upon victims that are struggling with abuse. So I don't think what we have now is working as effectively as the government hoped it would, and I'm simply asking them to have a look at their priorities and see if there's a different focus that they can take. Not cancel anything outright or totally change course, but just see where they're spending their money most effectively. We certainly as a local government can't solve the opioid crisis. We know that, and we're frustrated. We can't solve the social disorder that goes along with it. But I think at least we can urge the provincial government to re-examine its approach and to take into account the harmful long-term effects that the current policy is having on those with addictions. Consumption sites, I'm sure, do short-term good by saving people's lives. But in the long term, Is it giving them the treatment they need to get off their addiction? No. So that's what I'm asking for, Your Worship, and I appreciate the conversation, and I'm quite happy to go ahead with the vote.
Councillor Gesselbrock, briefly, please, noting the hour.
I appreciate. I think the issue is, I think a lot of the statements made by Councillor Thorpe are very reasonable. It just doesn't make any sense, like why have the statement that the overdose, the current approach for the overdose prevention site is a failure to provide long-term treatment when it wasn't the whole purpose. Like, why don't we just exclude that and say, hey, provincial government, we still have a lot of people that are in addiction in the streets. There's still a lot of social disorder. We need to be doing things that is actually addressing this in a long-term way, and we are feeling that you haven't been doing that, and leave the overdose prevention site out of it. It'd be a much simpler solution, because I think the issue that a lot of people have is that it is just, it's a stopgap to stop people from dying in a crisis because of the fact that we haven't put the resources in what we need. And I think we're just kind of conflating the issue by having it in there, and that's why I can't support it. You know, if at a later date we want to change things, probably could have something that with more support from this council that could be sending, you know, a clear message to the provincial government that we need to address the situation with a lot more urgency and resources than is currently happening. Thank you.
The motion's on the floor. All those in favor? Mayor Krogh, Councillor Thorpe, Councillor Perino. Those opposed, Councillors Eastmere, Gesselbrock, Hemmens, Brown, and Manley. The motion fails. We're on to the motion from Councillor Gesselbrock, re-amendment to the Manufactured Home Community Relocations and Assistance Policy. Councillor Gesselbrock? Oh yes, we'll go to the delegation first. Mr. Snyder, you've been waiting a long time. 5 minutes, I'll let you know when there's a minute left. You can introduce yourself for the record, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Listening to these weighty things you've been dealing with, I feel quite humbled and have personal experiences, as some of you have had, with this particular issue. And it's late at night. Would you consider deferring this motion to another meeting, and then I feel more confident in expressing my opinion on it?
Someone wish to move to... Seconded. Councillor Hemmens moves to defer. Councillor Gesselbrock seconds. A discussion.
I
didn't want to take...
I was going to say the same thing, Your Worship. I think that Councillor Gesselbrock was, you know, bless your heart for being here and staying here. I mean, deferral would be better because we would all have time to get past.
Just a point of order, there's actually no motion on the floor.
That's right. Well, that's true. There is no motion on the floor yet, so we should get the motion on the floor, and then Councillor Brown's quite correct. But if we hear from the delegation first... So if we're going, look, Council, are we going to defer the damn motion at this time?
Move the motion.
So Mr.
Motion
Schneider,
to defer.
get another shot at it.
Yeah, seconded.
The motion is on the floor, seconded by Councillor Gesselbrock.
To defer.
A move to defer by Councillor Perino, seconded by Councillor Hemmens.
Yes.
The motion is the deferral. All those in favor of deferral? Councillor Eastmere? Well, thank you. You need to raise your hand. I'm not a mind reader this time of night. Any opposed to the motion to defer? None. The motion is deferred. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you for
Your Worship.
your graciousness.
Yeah, see you another night.
Just clarification, did you want it deferred to the December 15th meeting or a future meeting, like past into
December
next
15th,
year?
yeah.
Okay.
Are there any items on question period, Ms. Gurry?
Your Worship, is there one more? Any other business to be discussed tonight?
Not that I'm aware of.
I have a question.
Well, just need to get the sheet first. Ms. Bruni, you've got 1116 and 415 for something acquisition
Well, let me just do it, okay?
Which item on the agenda are you referring to?
I have a question concerning the 1,016,415 acquisition for the infrastructure improvements for housing. And you know, like the people living on the street
Sorry,
in Nanaimo
just
are
no,
cold
please,
and
just one
just a
second.
minute. I'm going to ask you a question. Are cold and wet. And my question to you is, I would like you to consider, I'm asking you, begging you to consider using this money for rental for one of the big empty buildings that are in Nanaimo, like Food Safe, for instance, up in Terminate Mall. There are many empty buildings. So I am asking you, dear Mayor and Councillor, because it is just plain wrong to leave people on the street cold and wet when you have empty buildings. And to do this, dear Mayor, would be a bold, positive move for the city of Nanaimo. It could be just even for the winter. So I'm asking you to please, all of you, to consider this, and you will get a star for Christmas.
Thank you, Elkins. You can consider your question asked. The next is 10C. Mr. Annesley.
Hello again, Council, tonight. I just want to ask a quick question about the cost structure of the Bradley Street traffic calming, and also, is there a future plan to convert that into a complete street?
Sorry, 10C.
Sorry, it's about the Bradley traffic calming. So just, question A was what's the cost structure of making it Bradley, turning it into a into traffic calming, and then question B was
10C2.
Yeah.
Brad, Council direct staff to complete design implementation, etc. That's been passed, and the question was, sorry?
What's the cost structure to turn Bradley into, or for traffic calming and turning it into one lane for Bradley, and then
Mr. Sims,
as in a question addendum to that, is there a future plan to create that or turn that into a complete street?
Mr. Sims, can you help us here?
And Your Worship, in the GPC report of
Yes.
last Monday, it was $125,000 was the cost estimate, funded from the traffic calming budget.
Is there a future plan to create, make it into a complete street?
Sorry?
Is there a future plan to make it into a complete street? Like, you know, like a...
Your Worship, not at this time, no.
No? Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn. Moved Councillor Perino, seconded Councillor Brown. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much, everyone.